Right, come on, you four-eyed fat-faced fool. Tell us what's going to be in the new podcast from the two Mikes.
Well, plenty of buffoonery from you and lots of sense from me. What else?
There will be a milk shortage because you cannot just turn a cow on and off.
We are the two Mikes. We're in from Hawksbee and Jacobs, and on this very crisp day down here in the south of England, anyway, time to say very good afternoon to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good afternoon to you, Mr. Parry.
Rabbits!
Oh.
Well, I had to, didn't I?
By putting it in the opener.
Oh, come on.
But the thing is, you're all right saying that when it is literally the first thing in the morning. But it's no longer the first thing in the morning, it is the afternoon.
It's the first communication we've had with our audience of millions, and I just want them to know that is that is my month.
It's not.
Sorry?
It's not.
What do you mean?
Because you were doing a handover, Jim White.
Well, yes, I know,
but I mean... That was the first communication we had with our millions of listeners.
No, but this is the first communication within the structure of our show, and I didn't want them to think I'd forgotten about them. It's my monthly greeting. It's rabbits, and it's the start of... What some would say is the fun season of the fun month of the year.
The fun month of the year. You hate Christmas, though, don't you?
Well, no, I don't hate Christmas. I mean, funny enough, you and I were standing in a hostelry last night for a very quick refreshment after the show.
Yes,
and we did look around.
What's called the post-show meeting? I think
it's the post-show. Howard Kendall, the late great Everton manager,
debrief.
Used to call it the warm down.
Yeah,
the warm down.
Really?
So we've adopted the
right. Well, we have the warm up on a Saturday at 11 o'clock.
That's right. Yeah, and we have the warm down.
Warm down every other day.
No, quite seriously, I'm not sure if anybody else is thinking like this, but we are. I can speak for us, two of us, because we had this conversation last night. I can.
No, you cannot speak for me. I've told you that before.
You said and I said it came much earlier this year than before.
It seems that way.
It seems like it's been here for 3 weeks already,
yes.
and Christmas is in full swing. So
you can't start moaning about Christmas now, though.
I'm not moaning. I like Christmas. I like people.
Are you going to buy me a present this year?
What?
Are you going to buy me a present this year?
I've bought you enough presents this year.
What?
You've had enough...
what presents have you bought me?
I'm going to go into that. You've had enough goodwill. But anyway, look, the point I'm saying is that I think it's great that people get together at Christmas and goodwill is the order of the day.
All around.
But the thing is, a bit like when a President of the United States of America has to start thinking about re-election, it's about 2.5 years into the 4-year term of office.
That's right.
What I'm finding these days is that when I was a kid, Christmas used to sort of emerge on sort of December the 10th or 11th or something like that.
When you put your letter up the chimney.
Well, all that kind of stuff. But you'd normally say...
Did you do that?
No, I never did that, no.
Why not?
Well, I don't think it was a part of the kind of the ritual in our house, you know.
What, you mean you didn't send Father Christmas a Christmas list?
Well, when I was a very little kid, that's a long time ago, I used to give my mum a letter, and she said she'd put it in the post and send it to, to Greenland or whatever. But that's
not where he is, unfortunately.
No, but that's irrelevant. What I'm saying is, it never kind of started until school had finished, and school didn't finish till the 15th or 16th of December, and then you thought about Christmas. But these days, quite seriously. You see the build-up to it coming halfway through November and even before, and I think it takes something away because it means now that where Christmas used to be 1 month in a year, like 1/12, it's now at least 2 months in a year.
Well, no, it used to be 1 week, but it's now sort of 6 weeks.
It's 6 or 8 weeks. Anyway, there you go.
That's a better analogy. How did your predictions go last night, by the way?
What?
I believe you said that West Ham, Manchester United would go to extra time, and you also said that Arsenal would beat Southampton. So that's 0 for 2.
No, the point is, unless you put your head above the parapet and actually say that this is what you think is going to happen, yes, nobody will take you seriously. How did your predictions go?
Well, my predictions went well. I said Manchester United would win.
Yes.
And I also said that Arsenal would win. So that's 2 for 2.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Sorry, I said that Southampton would win.
Oh, did you? You just changed your mind on that one.
Yeah,
I don't remember you saying that.
Yeah, I think I did.
Anyway, look, that doesn't matter. The point is that now we've got the semi-finalists of the EFL.
Yeah.
Is that the English Football League Cup, by the way?
I believe that's what it stands for.
And it will be a thrilling competition because the final will be a good one.
Arsene Wenger seemed very happy not to be in it anymore.
I couldn't believe it.
He was very, very smiley at the end of the game, wasn't he?
When I saw him talking after the game, he was smiling as though he'd won the game, not lost the game. And you almost think, and you made quite a good point, that the semi-finals are a two-legged affair.
It is a two-legged affair.
That brings another 2 games in to introduce into the season for a competition which, if if you don't rate, you don't really want to be in anyway.
No, exactly.
And it looked to me like Arsene Wenger had that thought in his mind.
But is this what they then now have to do? They have to sort of feign interest, and then when they go out, they have to feign disappointment. But actually, you can usually tell with Arsene Wenger whether he's really annoyed or not. And he certainly didn't look annoyed last night.
No. Unless, if you enter a competition, you presumably enter it because you want to win it. And so you're going to try...
Well, no, not necessarily, because they enter this competition because they haven't got any choice.
That is a good point.
So they don't voluntarily go in for it, do they?
No.
It's like the Europa League.
It's a bit like the Europa League. I totally agree. You have to enter it. But I mean, if that's the position, surely there should be some sort of individual choice as to whether you want to go into the competition or not. I do remember, actually, funny enough, in the 60s, Everton withdrew from the League Cup along, I think, with Liverpool, Manchester United and Spurs in the...
For what reason?
Well, because they said that they just didn't think it was a worthwhile competition to compete in.
Right.
And they were allowed to in those days. And then, of course, obviously the Football League ran everything in those days, including the First Division, which is now run by the Premier League, and they were you couldn't do it these days.
Yes.
But anyway, enough. We've now got New England manager who has spoken for the first time today.
I'm already confused, having heard him speak for the first time today, because I thought we were under the impression that Wayne Rooney's going to be stripped of the captaincy because of his business in the hotel, piano playing and all that kind of thing.
Yep.
Then we heard that he wasn't going to be stripped of his captaincy,
Yep.
and now we hear that he might be being stripped of his captaincy. So which is it?
Sorry, what makes you think he might now again be stripped of his captaincy?
Well, because Gareth Southgate has said that there's no guarantee that Wayne Rooney will be playing for England and will be captain of England.
Yeah, but he has to say that because, I mean, what he's
saying...
Why
does he?
Well, because what he's basically saying is there's no guarantee that any player will have an automatic place in the England team.
Yeah, but I mean, surely
guarantee...
the captain is a special case. Either you're the captain or you're not the captain.
Well, the point is, for the first time now, Gareth Southgate is the official England manager, where he was interim England manager before.
Yes.
And so he has every right now to say, I can't be held to any agreements that were made...
By me?
No, between any... England player and any former England manager.
Well, no, but he already said that he was going to be the captain, and now he's saying he might not be.
No. While he was the interim manager and asked to look after the team for 4 games, he had to announce what his strategy was for those 4 games. That is now completely different. He is now the full-time permanent on a 4-year contract.
So what, is he now saying
manager.
that he may have made some decisions in the past which he now doesn't agree with?
No, what he's saying is I've now got to completely review everything that has been done.
That I did?
Yes, of course.
He's going to have to review everything that he did.
Well, hang on.
Are you sure you're not getting this one round the wrong way?
No. It's absolutely sensible for him now to say, look, I had the 4 games, I did what I thought was right then, I will now review what I did then to see whether I could have done it better, and if I could have done it better, I'll do it better in the future.
Isn't that like the MP who refers himself to the Standards Committee because he's not sure whether he's done something wrong?
No, I don't know why you're bringing in MPs and standard committees. Most MPs...
I refer myself to the Standards Committee to see whether I did anything wrong.
Most MPs have more money put into their bank account from their expense account for being an MP than they do for their salary. That's a part of the job, and that's what they do. However, we have to accept that as they are members of Parliament, they're all honourable men, except for those who are found to be dishonourable.
Right, but they don't know whether they're dishonourable themselves. They have to ask somebody else whether they're dishonourable. That's the bit that I don't quite go along with, and that's why I'm saying for Gareth Southgate to say that he's now going to review the things that he did himself seems mad.
No, I think you're going off on a tangent. I think Gareth Southgate has got every right to say, look, and he did say he was brought in and it was a mess. So when you're sorting out a mess, it's not quite as easy to sort out.
It wasn't actually a mess, was it?
Well, he thought it was, and he's,
If he thought that was a mess, he should have tried taking over after Roy Hodgson.
Well, he did virtually, didn't he? Because there was only a manager who played 1 game in between him and Roy Hodgson.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that he's looked at those 4 games in a position where he was caretaker manager, and he will now review what he did, and now he will try and adopt a policy and a philosophy.
I can see why you got on so well at the FA. Talking absolute balderdash. He will now review what he did and see whether what he did was right, and then he will decide whether what he's going to do next will be anything like what he did before.
But that's a very sensible policy.
It's nonsense.
It's not. Why is it
blatant
nonsense?
Rubbish.
Why is it nonsense?
Because he's already done the job for 4 games.
So
why does he have to review it?
Are you saying that...
I've seen the time, by the way.
Never mind the time, because I think you're getting into airy-fairy issues here.
Is that right?
What I'm saying is that if you don't think it's right for him to look back on the 4 games in which he was in charge and say, right, what have I learnt from those 4 games?
No, this is all part of the Pep Southgate image.
No,
I will review what I did. I'll tell you why he's going to review it, because there's nothing else to do for 4 months.
Right, OK. So if we do a show and I think you're useless at doing that show for 3 hours...
Well, that would be at least giving me some thought.
Every right to say to you, look, have a look at yourself, please, and improve next time. That's the way the world works.
That's different from you reviewing yourself, though, isn't it?
That's the way the world... I review myself after every show.
How much did you give yourself yesterday?
9 out of 10.
I wouldn't. This is Talk Sport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. Gareth Southgate has given his first press conference as the official England manager.
Yep.
And, of course, Nigel Adderley, our man who is TalkSport's England correspondent, was there.
Yes.
Let's have a listen to what he had to say about the kind of team that he wants to put together.
I'd like an England team that excite the public. I'd like an England team that the supporters look forward to watching, and ultimately that they're proud of. And I think if we achieve those two aims, then we'll be on the right pathway. Wayne Rooney is the England captain. I said that at the beginning of the interim period. I think what's also clear is that I've only selected him to start in 2 of the 4 matches that we've had, so it's obviously not a case that I think Wayne expects to play every game. So important for me that I think we develop more leaders in that group. I've talked about that over the last couple of months. Wayne has played an important part for England up to this point. I'm sure can do that in the future. But we also have to develop others.
So is he the captain or not?
Well, never mind that. It's
a straight question.
No, it's not. It's not because he how can he know? Right, it's going to be next year, Mike, before he puts an England squad together again.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
How can he possibly know what the situation is going to be with Wayne Rooney or any other players in 4 months' time?
Well, he says we need more leaders, right? How about he becomes a leader and makes a decision and says, right, from this point on, Wayne Rooney is no longer the captain. Or from this point on, no, he is the captain.
The thing I object to now is I don't like the expression, I'd like to have an England team that excites the public. I mean, I would like to have a night of passion with Kelly Brook, okay?
What?
But, I mean, anybody can say that. Anybody can say what
family show, this.
Excuse me, anybody can...
I think there's more chance of England winning the World Cup, to be honest.
Anybody can say... anybody can say what they would like to do.
Yes.
What I really would like to have heard is, I intend to put a team together that the English public will be excited by. That's what I want to hear.
And I'm going to show by example that my first decision is going to be to axe Wayne Rooney and give the captaincy to somebody else. Let's talk to Nigel Adderley, who was actually there, instead of listening to your interpretation of it. Nigel, welcome back to the show.
Afternoon, gentlemen.
Hi, Nigel.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us again. Now, I mean, I'm not wrong in saying that this is all a bit confusing, am I?
Well, it's an odd situation to have when you have Wayne Rooney as such a major figure in the England team over many, many years, and he has been the captain. But as Gareth Southgate said in the clip there, he's not been the captain he's not played for half of the games that Gareth Southgate has been in charge of so far. But it's difficult to appoint him as captain or not with the next game 4 months away.
He's not going to get. I mean, is he going to get better? I mean, is that the point? I mean, surely Southgate. Yeah, but surely Southgate needs to make a decision based upon not whether Wayne Rooney becomes, his old self again, but on what his plan is for the sort of England team going forward.
But does anybody else in the squad provide the leadership qualities that Wayne Rooney does? And I'm not talking about what may or may not have happened in the team hotel, but on the field, and maybe more importantly for Wayne Rooney at the moment, on the training ground, is anybody else capable of doing what Wayne Rooney does? Because every single England player you speak to in interviews before and after a game, they always speak about how important Wayne Rooney is. This used to be an England team riven with cliques. It's not now, and I think Wayne Rooney had a major role to play. Well,
you say that, but I mean, look at their performances in the last 2 competitions, right? I mean, yes, they got there, as we all know, because it was relatively easy to do so. But once they're there, surely the captain then leads by example and motivates the team into some kind of results-driven process, which he clearly hasn't done.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that England haven't punched their way in the last couple of tournaments, and Wayne Rooney has to take some responsibility.
Surely he has to take a lot of responsibility, doesn't he?
Hang on, Nigel. You actually clarified the position a few seconds ago, and I clarified it before that. The point is, how can Southgate possibly nominate who the England captain is going to be next March? Anything could happen in the next 4 months. Anything at all. Somebody could emerge as a great Premier League leader. Wayne Rooney could refine his form. Wayne Rooney might be, I don't know, on the way out of Manchester United. So he can't possibly stake today his intention to appoint a captain in March. Unfortunately, old MG doesn't understand that because he's riven with...
All I'm looking for is a decision. So far, Gareth Southgate has not made any decision other than to say that he wants a job that he previously didn't want.
He can't make that decision.
We had very few decisions here today, apart from the fact that Gareth Southgate is the manager. We don't know the makeup of his backroom team either.
Right.
Steve Holland, of course, is a part-time coach at the moment, sharing that job with Chelsea. Sammy Lee was somebody who was brought in by the previous regime under Sam Allardyce. And, of course, we don't know who's going to replace Gareth Southgate. Clearly, there are other issues around the Football Association at the moment, and maybe things like that have been put on the back burner. But that there is a good deal for him to sort out. And clearly, having the captain is an issue. But you look at other major football nations around Europe, nations that have done better than England in recent years, and do they have constant debates about who is the captain?
Was there any questioning of him about the length of the contract? Because a lot of fans are asking why 4 years instead of 2 years. And was there any mention of how much money he's getting?
No, there was no mention of the money. Of course, that there is no break clause. That was confirmed, which may surprise many people because,
Indeed.
Of course, if England fail at the next World Cup, then can Gareth Southgate continue as manager? That would be an issue for the FA to sort out. And, of course, if they choose to get rid of him, then presumably there will be some sort of payoff as part of that. But I think the FA are trying to look long-term. I mean, they've had so many short-term decisions made recently. They want to see him as the manager for the long term to develop the young players, and they see the 4-year contract as a way of doing that.
Yeah, but you see, thing is, Nige, I kind of agree with you, but Martin Glenn did say during the reign of I've forgotten his name.
Who?
The manager before Sam Allardyce.
What do you mean, Roy Hodgson?
Roy Hodgson. He did say.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah, he did say.
26 minutes into the show. How many points are you giving yourself for the first half hour?
He did say through the reign of Roy Hodgson that if Roy Hodgson wanted an extension to his contract, right, they would do it on merit. They actually said, let's wait till one competition's over.
Unfortunately, they couldn't find any.
And see whether we can appoint him for another 2 years after that. Now, surely that's got to apply to Gareth Southgate, who...
Apparently not.
At least Roy Hodgson sort of went into the England game with a huge catalogue of experience behind him. He never won anything, obviously, and it was all a bit of a mystery as to why he was appointed. But Gareth Southgate is a greenhorn in terms of international management, and I just can't believe they've just given him a blank 4-year cheque. You know, it's all yours, whether it happens or it doesn't.
Well, I think the Football Association are trying to look long-term and also join up everything which has happened at St George's Park. That they want him working very closely with Dan Ashworth, the technical director, and they want every England team from the under-16s to the first team playing the same way. And they want somebody to provide some sort of leadership, maybe just as a figurehead at times. And they believe that Southgate is the man. They can't keep chopping and changing the manager and having different philosophies coming into that because it simply doesn't work. Well, they do that, and of course their hand was forced by other circumstances following Roy Hodgson's departure and Sam Allardyce's one game in charge. But I think now that they're trying to... They always try to look long-term, the Football Association. That they're rather like Arsenal, always looking 2 years ahead. But if they look short-term and get somebody in for Russia and it fails, then somebody else comes in, would move in a different direction, and do the players really know where they are?
Yeah, but if you
it's
get
all a bit
somebody
shambolic, though, isn't it?
It is, because you get somebody in long term, but then you fail after 2 years in Russia, then you're stuck with a guy for 2 years,
Right.
and then you've got a messy divorce, then you've got to try and find somebody else. I mean, I don't know. Practicality.
I think you're very jumbled up about this issue. You don't seem to know whether you support him, you don't support him, you think the FA are great, you think they're no good. What are you talking about?
I've got very clear thinking, and Nigel will appreciate the questions I've asked him, unlike the mumbo-jumbo nonsense that you've been trying to throw at our England correspondent, who must now regard you as somewhat of a flake.
I wouldn't say that. Nigel, thank you very much, as ever, for putting up with Mr. Parry's nonsense and for informing us so much about the press conference earlier on today. Nigel Addy there, TalkSport's England correspondent. I still think that the FA is very, very muddled about what on earth it is that they want him to do. He seems very muddled about what it is that he wants to do. All he says is that he'd like to excite the public. Well, wouldn't we all, darling? This is TalkSport. It's coming up to Christmas, and everybody needs an advent calendar. So here's one for you, 2 Mike style.
Ho, ho, ho! Bees have human face recognition. They can recognise humans and come back and say hello to you again.
Rubbish.
They do. The reason beekeepers wear veils is because they want to disguise themselves from the bee.
Ho, ho, ho!
Hey, hey, hey!
You like that?
And exactly why are we dwelling upon this observation of mine?
You were quite rightly pointing out that it's the 1st of December.
Yes.
What happens on the 1st of December?
On the 1st of December...
Don't start singing a song, please.
No, I won't. No. Go on, tell me.
You have an advent calendar.
An advent calendar.
And that is the Porky Advent calendar.
Oh, okay.
We did it a couple of years ago, you
Okay,
might remember.
yeah.
It was very popular.
Okay.
So we're doing it again. So every day from now until Christmas, we will be counting down. We'll be opening a little opening in the calendar, but there will be no chocolate behind it, sadly, for you. And it will be a little sort of nugget of something that you've said in the past.
Funny enough, my old friend Phil Neville actually tweeted out this morning.
Your friend Phil Neville?
Yes.
When was the last time you spoke to him?
Who, Phil?
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that. That's but
Speak to him a lot, do you?
I'm not getting into that. But he tweeted out this morning saying he's been away working, he's going home, he's looking forward to opening the first day of the Advent calendar with his family.
Have you got one at home?
That's great. Sorry?
Have you got one at home?
No, but I've bought a couple of colleagues here at TalkSport Advent calendars, and they are starting to open them today.
Really?
Yes, and I'm doing it in association with them.
Which kind did you buy?
I bought a silver one.
A silver one?
Yeah.
Well, does it not got a make? Is it not like a particular make of chocolate?
Thornton's, maybe. Thornton's.
Uh-huh.
And I bought a blue Cadbury's one.
A blue Cadbury's one?
Yeah, my favourite.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of blue, by the way, have you
Yes.
seen old Mr. Koeman's latest blunder on behalf of Everton?
No.
Well, do you know how he said already that Lukaku, if he wanted to make himself the sort of consummate footballer, should move on to a bigger club?
Yes,
Then
indeed.
said that he thought that Liverpool would win the title.
Yeah.
He then puts out a tweet today where he's posing next to his Christmas tree, which is up, which appears to be covered in blue red decorations.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a blunder. That it's almost like turning up for training in a red car, isn't it?
Well, right.
It's
Do you remember when you waved
Yeah.
at the Everton players at Runcorn Station?
I do, yeah.
And Lukaku, as you call him, was wearing a pair of very, very bright red scarlet headphones.
I know, but they were a pair of headphones, man. I mean,
Well,
you
you think somebody in the team would go, red's not really the colour you should be wearing as headphones?
I mean, I have to admit, the colour red does not appeal to me. It's not part of my
I mean, you've got nothing that's red, have
nothing at all. Not my fashion, not my clothes or anything I do or buy or in my cars or anything. I've never been red because it just doesn't suit me.
Yeah.
Blue's always suited
Well,
me, and that's it.
Ronald Koeman's Christmas tree. I'm showing you a picture now.
Yeah, but you see, I think it's a bit harsh for people to criticise him. A lot of the stuff that goes on the Christmas tree is red. I mean, a lot of the berries and
But he
and
then
that sort of thing.
changed it because he got so much sort of back chat after he put it up. He then changed it to a white-looking
All
Christmas
I could
tree.
say is the second Christmas tree, in which everything's been changed to white, looks very unnatural. The first Christmas tree, holly and berries and
will you have red on your Christmas tree?
and ribbons. Well, I mean,
You don't have one, do you?
of course I do.
No, you don't.
Of course I do.
bet you don't have a Christmas tree.
I do
Why
have-
would you put a Christmas tree up in your place?
Because I like to join into the festive spirit with everybody else.
Do you buy one or do you keep one in a box and just take it out every year?
What do you mean?
Well, do you use a fake one? It's not a difficult question.
I don't use a real Christmas tree
Don't you?
because you'd have to haul it up, flights of stairs and over the balcony and get it into the apartment because it's a penthouse.
Over the balcony?
Yeah.
Well, you
So,
just bring it up the stairs.
well, because of all the soil would drop all over the place.
Soil?
You have to be very careful. Yeah.
Soil?
Yeah, because you've got a real Christmas tree. You usually have it in a, in a wooden tub, don't you?
don't.
Yes, you do.
No, you buy it and they saw off the bottom of it and you put it in some water.
No,
in a Christmas tree
no,
stand.
no.
There's no soil involved.
Listen, a real Christmas tree is a
I
very
buy one every year.
is a very heavy thing.
It is.
And to prop it up in the corner of your room, you would need to put it in like something very substantial to keep it up.
No, you put it in a Christmas tree stand, which
Yeah.
normally is a little bowl, which is attached to 3 legs, which you then screw into the bottom of the tree, and you put water in the bottom of it, so it keeps the things from keeps the leaves from falling off.
That's ludicrous. If you've sawn the through the bough of a tree, it doesn't take water in, so that's a ludicrous way to do it.
Well, that's what everybody does,
Well,
and it works.
I don't care what they do.
So when are you getting your Christmas tree out, and does it have any red on it? That was my question.
I think it does have red on it because it has red ribbon and it has red bells and it has berries and all that
And
kind
does
of
it
stuff.
come out of the box already made up like that?
Yes.
So you actually just put it in the box at the end of the Christmas period, and you take it out again?
No.
How wonderful is that?
No. I have a new Christmas tree every year. In fact, I have 2 new Christmas trees every year for my 2 homes. And in my third home, I don't always put a Christmas
Your
tree
third
if I'm
home
not
where?
going to be there. My Orwell Quay.
Where was the last time you were
apartment.
there?
Well, it's something that I have to sparingly give time to.
Talking absolute cobblers again, aren't you?
Why?
I can always tell when you're talking rubbish because you slow down.
Nope.
Neil says this: how on earth did Mike Parry score himself as 9 out of 10 yesterday? For most of the show, nobody understood what he was on about.
Well, you see, that's very nice. Ooh, hi, sorry. Oh, I just
What's the matter with you?
Just seen an image of who are you?
Who are you? Yeah.
Well,
Well, he was on Jim White's show earlier.
He was,
He
indeed,
didn't actually
yes,
say
yeah.
"Who are you?" once.
No, I know, but
Surprisingly.
it doesn't matter. Sorry, what were you saying?
What I was saying to you was I was reading some tweets.
Right.
Simon says nothing better than turning on the radio to hear Mike Parry talking absolute tosh.
Excuse me. I don't want that. Now, listen, there's one here, which I'm going to read out because it's a Saints fan, Christopher in the Isle of Wight, having a go at me.
Yeah.
Pompous Parry, as he is monikered me, strikes again. So Arsenal would have no problem with Saints last night, eh? Looked like plenty of problems to me. Never mind, Porky, you're only wrong nearly every time you open your mouth. From Christopher, the Saints fan, Isle of Wight.
That's absolutely right.
Christopher, this is a free country and you have every right to express your opinion. However, I think you'll find that, as I was not party to the thinking pattern of Arsene Wenger and his approach to that game last night, I cannot be blamed for a result.
Do you think he was quite happy to be out of the competition then? Because you can never really tell, can you? Because you can't. I mean, if he appears,
very happy after the game,
appears to be disinterested in the competition, he would get criticised.
Yes.
So he has to appear as if he cares about it. Well, but at the end, he did look remarkably happy, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
How about this one from Hells? Who obviously agrees with me. The FA seem all over the place again. The whole FA is a shambles. Time to stop making this about Rooney's captaincy.
Yeah. I mean, the whole FA is not a shambles, and it's very unfair to say that.
Well, it seems that way, though.
The FA has a huge responsibility. It's in control of football in this country, and football is one of the biggest industries in the world, literally. And certainly, I think it's the industry in the world which provokes and promotes the most interest, much more than politics or anything like that. And so it's very, very hard to keep a handle on everything that happens in football and get everything right all the time. Yeah. And actually, some of the problems in football are insoluble anyway, or unsolvable, I should say. You just can't solve them because they're so complex in terms of the consequences of making the wrong decision, if you see what I mean. See,
again, you get into FA speak again. You're just using a lot of words jumbled together that make absolutely no sense at all.
No.
How about this from Stephen, who I think has a bit of difficulty understanding the way that radio works? He says, knowing your lunch break is ruined as soon as you hear the two mics on Talk Sport, I'd rather listen to a power outage.
Well, why don't you switch the radio off?
Well, you can't listen to a power outage, can you?
No, well, I suppose you could.
It's not possible.
If you wanted to.
Well, how does it sound like?
Very cruel one here from Nick, who says, talking about the colour red, Porky, don't forget about your red bladderised face.
Very good.
I haven't got a red bladderised face.
That's the tweet of the day.
I think you're confusing me with somebody else, maybe a close colleague.
Yeah, that's the tweet of the day so far. We got loads more coming up, including Dr. Richard Wellings, who's head of Transport at the Institute of Economic Affairs, because the motorist is once more under attack and Porky is once more outraged about it. This is Talk Sport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. Coming up a little bit later, it's Postman Pork. This is only the second outing for the Porky's mailbag. So if you have sent in a letter to TalkSport addressed to the two mics or addressed to him, you may be lucky and have it read out a little bit later on. We've got a whole load of stuff here. We haven't opened them yet because we'll be opening them live on air a little bit later on. The Porky quiz will now be moved to tomorrow, by the way, in case anybody's interested. So you have to tell us what the quiz subject is. So I want you to think about it over the course of the show.
Oh, don't worry. We'll announce that before the end of today's proceedings.
Thank you very much indeed. We're not back in the courtroom, by the way. Dr. Richard Wellings is a man we're going to speak to now. He's the head of Transport at the Institute of Economic Affairs because the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, which is, I have to say, a quango I hadn't heard of until today, has apparently come out and said that we need to cut down on emissions. We need to make the air in our cities much less polluted, and as a result of that, they want to slow cars down. They want to do more with speed bumps and all sorts of other things. In addition to that, petrol's going up as well. Let's talk to Dr. Wellings and find out what he makes of it all. Dr. Wellings, very good afternoon.
Afternoon to you.
Thank you very much for joining us. There seems to be a sort of unanimity about some of the stories around this morning and this afternoon on all of the news networks and on the newspapers as well that would suggest the motorists are sort of being used as a bit of a punch ball again.
That's right. And of course, you've got to be worried about the economic impact of some of these measures. So we worked out that just a 2-minute delay to every car journey has an economic cost of around $16 billion a year. This is because there's just so many vehicles on the road, around 35 million, and road transport around 90% of passenger transport and around 70% of freight. So the economic damage done by these kind of measures can be absolutely enormous.
Doc, I totally agree with you. And I don't know where some of these figures come from. In a report I've read this morning, it says air pollution causes up to 25,000 premature deaths a year, mainly from heart attacks, strokes, asthma and lung disease. Now, can I put this to you, Doctor, because you're an expert? On most urban motorways, most motorways near urban centres, so in the Midlands around Birmingham, the M25 and all that, you can't go more than about 25 or 30 miles an hour most of the time. On motorways where you can actually go up to the legal limit of 70 miles an hour, in Cumbria and in places like Northumberland, there aren't any people there to get asthma or anything else. There's fresh air all over the place. Somebody's made these figures up. I don't believe 25,000 premature deaths occur a year because of cars.
No, I mean, they actually use quite vague terms when they use those figures. And what they actually mean is that the pollution might have contributed to some of those deaths, but they don't actually know. And a lot of the science is pretty dodgy. It's obviously very hard to separate out the causes of someone's illness. And the problem is a lot of the people that live in inner cities where pollution levels are high are also relatively poor and have a lot of bad lifestyle habits as well that cause a lot of diseases. So you're not really comparing like with like. So you've got to treat these figures with a lot of caution.
Oh, you've just dismissed them as the fantasy, ramblings of nutters. The other thing is, Doc, I've worked out by talking...
They're not taking a very scientific approach to this, are you?
Excuse me. I've worked out by talking to friends of mine who are economists that if the speed limit in this country was put up from 70 miles an hour to 80 miles an hour, we could improve the economy by 1% a year in terms of growth. That's what happens if you let people get on with their lives and get on with their businesses. These people who want to reduce it to 50 miles an hour are dinosaurs.
Well, exactly. I think we can start to treat motorists like adults, and know that they will slow down when the conditions are dangerous. And on some pretty empty motorways, as you say, so the M6 north of Preston or the M62 east of the A1, you could easily, at least on a pilot basis, raise the limit to 80 and see what happens. And then motorists would have faster journey times. There'd be improved access to work, lower delays.
But isn't the problem, though, that those places you talk about where there is less traffic, people aren't going there? That's why there's less traffic, because they don't actually work there. Where they do work, the roads are terribly badly congested because there's too much traffic. In London, in Manchester, in Birmingham, in every major central part of any city, there's roadworks all the time, and, those are mostly being done by the very people who say we need to reduce pollution.
That's right. Also, obviously, a lot of councils have been narrowing roads. They've been putting in all these anti-car measures, or the traffic calming. For one thing, it kills a lot of people because it slows down the emergency services, particularly when you put the humps and the chicanes on major roads, as has happened in a lot of big cities. So the ambulances can't get to the heart attacks quickly enough. It's terrible for people with various health problems like arthritis and back pain and so on, having to negotiate all those humps, etc. It might make sense on cul-de-sacs and sort of minor residential streets, but it's obviously been extended far too far.
Yeah, it's outrageous. I went down the M3 a few months ago now, I have to admit, Doc, and I was going off to Bournemouth, and for about a stretch of about 13 or 15 miles on the M3, you were restricted to 50 miles an hour by these average speed cameras. The problem was, in the whole of that 15 miles, I did not see one workman or one work vehicle or one piece of action on improving the road. I honestly believe that it's a political chicanery to try and control us, to try and...
By whom?
Exactly. By the people who run...
Starting to sound very paranoid.
No. By the people who run transport in this country. And I have no idea why they want to do this. Do you?
Well, I think at the back of it is the environmentalist lobby, and they want to use this air pollution scare as a sort of backdoor way of implementing their policies of getting cars out of cities and pushing more and more people onto public transport. But of course, public transport only really works in areas with a high population density like central London. It doesn't work well in suburbs or in rural areas. It's completely impractical for them to extend this out there. So really, they're just causing a lot of problems, and it's no long-term solution.
Well, that is the thing. You're quite right. I mean, if you live in any part of rural Britain, you have to have a car because it's the only way to get around. I mean, down in some parts of Sussex, where I'm not far from, there's only about one bus every hour in certain parts of that. But isn't the problem as well that they just don't seem to have any kind of combined strategy? Between the government, between individual local authorities, in terms of even the AA and the RAC when they all get together, nobody seems to have a clue about what to do with the numbers of cars, the numbers of trucks, the amount of deliveries that are now being made from people shopping online, all of that. It's gone bonkers, isn't it?
Well, it hasn't. The other problem, of course, is that the transport investment has been seriously shifted towards uneconomic rail schemes, and the prime example of that is High Speed 2 that's in the pipeline. That's going to cost 60, 70, 80 billion. It's going to absorb around a third of the transport investment budget, and yet it's not a very good scheme, and that money could be spent on things like bypasses that have very, very high returns and would reduce congestion and solve a lot of these pollution problems as well.
Yes, and the other thing about public transport, Doc, is that, OK, that's fine. So you say, I tell you what, let's force people off the roads and force them onto public transport. If you've got 12 buses all lined up together going down Oxford Street in London, churning out huge amounts of diesel fumes into the air.
Although a lot of the buses are now kind of ecologically more friendly, aren't they?
Well, they're supposed to be, but if they are, why are they saying you've got to turn them electric? If they're not ecologically friendly, why is everybody saying they've got to be electric? What I'm saying is, Doc, the slower a vehicle moves, the more pollutory filth it pumps out of its exhaust pipe.
Pollutory?
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah, because of course you often have higher revs at low speed.
Exactly.
To be fair, this report did say, get rid of some of the road humps because they do cause acceleration, deceleration that does pump out more pollution. So that was one good aspect of it.
Yeah.
But of course, particularly outside London, the average number of people on a bus is at any given time. I forget the exact number, but it's something like 8 or 9 per bus. And
yes.
You've got a 12-ton vehicle, which means overall it actually pollutes more than people driving in a 1-ton car. So
absolutely,
it's not the answer really. Buses are pretty dirty vehicles, and
they are filthy. I totally
You're only encouraging, I'm afraid, Dr. Wells. But listen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Dr. Richard Wellings there, who's from the Institute, head of Transport Institute of Economic Affairs.
He talks a lot of sense.
Well, he does talk a lot of sense, but he sounds sensible when he talks about it, whereas you sound like a raving lunatic.
No, I don't.
You do.
A mate of mine,
I've told you. You haven't got any mates who are
mate of mine
either.
drives from
Absolute
Hastings to Goodison, right,
mate of yours lives in Hastings?
300 miles, and back
again. Mate of yours lives in Hastings?
Never mind about who my mate is. 600 miles. If he had to drive it at 50 miles an hour, he'd have to start out for a Saturday 3 o'clock game on Thursday.
Why?
It's outrageous.
How many miles is he going? 600?
Yeah.
So if he goes at 50 miles an hour, how long does that take? 12 hours.
Oh, you're going to try and tell me that, yes, you never stop in a car, and you're never slower than 50.
It's a simple mathematical equation.
It's not.
12 hours to go 600 miles.
Rubbish.
Simple as that.
Utter rubbish.
Right.
Because the average speed on motorways in this country is not even 50 miles an hour.
Oh, well, so he'd be speeding up then if he was going.
Ludicrous.
So how long does it take him now?
Ludicrous. Takes him all day.
You're just making this up, aren't you?
Takes him all day there and all day back.
I'm not buying it. This is Talk Sport.
Hello, Mikes. This is Tim Vine, the comedian here. I'm so looking forward to hearing Mike Parry's post this morning, and indeed his delivery of the post. It's a delivery joke.
Very nice little rejoinder, that wasn't it? Tim Vine popped into Paul Ross's breakfast show on Talk Radio earlier on.
He did.
And he left you a little message.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much indeed.
Considering that you interrupted his one joke that he told the other week when he was on the warm-up with us, I thought that was very magnanimous of him.
Well, he's a great guy, and I didn't interrupt the joke at all. What happened was that, being smarter than the average bear, I anticipated the punchline, so I just started giving it a bit of that ahead of the punchline, which perhaps was... no,
you did what you normally do whenever we have a
Predictive.
guest on, is that you don't actually listen to anything they say, and all you can think about is what you're going to say next, and that's what goes on inside that little head of yours. Now, Big Cheese says this, two-faced Porky again. Yesterday, save the bees. Today, stuff the environment, I want to drive fast.
No, it's not that at all.
It's not a defensible position.
No. Please get me right. I'm not in that at all.
Get me right.
If cars...
What about don't get me wrong?
If cars drive slower, they emit a lot more pollution than if they drive faster. If you put up the speed limit in this country to 80 miles an hour between the hours of 11 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning, the economy of this country would increase by 1% in terms of gross domestic product every year. That is a provable economic fact.
Is that right?
And the only reason it doesn't happen is because people with political motives to turn us back to the days when we had horse and carts are, I'm afraid, so active that they bring pressure to bear on the feeble-minded. That's all I can say.
But it's never going to really change, is it? Because in the end, they need the money that they get from the car business. They need the money they get from the fuel tax. They need the road tax money. They spend billions and billions and billions of pounds, but they still have loads of money that they can put somewhere else. How about this from Danny? He says, Porky's right about the M3. There's one crew of about 3 guys doing the work for about 2 years. They've turned a good motorway into a hellhole.
No, it is.
Well, the M1's the same. If you go anywhere up towards...
The Luton bit.
Well, the Luton bit's been fixed now.
Yeah, I think it has,
but there's a 50-mile-an-hour limit that goes probably from Luton north up to about Leicester.
Like Milton Keynes or something.
In fact, when we went to do the show in Rugby,
yes.
It was pretty much 50-mile-an-hour zone all the way up.
I know. It's
and narrow lanes, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it is quite remarkable, isn't it?
It's absolutely disgraceful. And these scare stories come out all the time from people who want to stop you doing what you need to do, to run a responsible,
I thought you
efficient
liked scare
life.
stories.
No, I don't.
Well, I mean, we're talking to a sprout expert later on in the hour.
Yeah.
Who actually is a moth expert, but
Yes.
the moths are attacking the sprouts.
Yes.
You said there was going to be a sprout shortage. Every year they said there's going to be a sprout shortage.
Yeah.
There never is. And you also said there was going to be a cream shortage, which there isn't either.
There is a cream
But
shortage.
you're very happy to keep
No.
promulgating these ridiculous myths,
I
scare stories that you like, but you don't like scare stories that you don't like.
I don't promulgate myths or scare stories. I try to present the facts to our listeners. I think you'll accept, Mike, that over the years I've got a track record of bringing health and environmental issues to the notice of our millions of listeners a long time before they read them in newspapers and other publications. For instance, what about this?
Yeah.
Drinking just one glass of white wine a day could increase your risk of skin cancer by 13%, say scientists. Could, yeah.
Yeah.
They linked it to high rates of invasive melanoma, in which the cancer penetrates the skin to the tissues below.
All right.
Those who drank a glass and a half of wine a day increased the danger of developing melanomas on the torso, a rare sight for skin cancer, by up to 73% compared with non-drinkers.
Who drinks 1.5 glasses of wine a day?
It's just rubbish. The whole thing is rubbish.
So that's
right?
not a scare story.
Of course it's not a scare story. It's a load of mumbo-jumbo put together by somebody who thinks that drinking alcohol it makes you a bad person.
Yeah.
Now, drinking alcohol in moderation does not make you a bad person. One of my mantras in life is bladderation in moderation.
I know that, yeah.
And if you stick with that, then you can have an enjoyable life without in any way putting any pressure on the National Health Service, which is what these people complain about.
But, I mean, the other thing is, as we both well know, newspapers have to fill their pages every single day. So
I'm
these
not
reports
knocking
came out.
newspapers.
I'm not saying
I'm
you
not
are.
knocking newspapers.
I'm not saying you are, but they publish these stories almost every day. One story about, red wine's good for you, and then the next day red wine is bad for you. It's an antioxidant, but then it might clog your heart up. You never really know. If you were to read every single story in every single newspaper about your health, you'd be incredibly confused.
Well, newspapers have been my life for such a long time, and I know they are responsible publications, and don't just publish scare stories. They publish the things that other people say.
They don't just publish scare stories, but what I'm saying is that there's an awful lot of these types of stories that are around on any given day.
Yeah.
Right? Some of which can be taken more seriously than others. I mean, for example, who are the scientists that are coming up with this stuff?
Well, this group of scientists who've done it go on about this, that and the rest. It's University of Rhode Island, which we've been to. Remember we went to a wedding in Rhode Island?
We did indeed.
Rhode Island is the smallest state in the Union in America.
It is.
And we went to a wedding there, and it was
in Newport,
Newport, fantastic setting. The garden actually ran right down to the seashore, didn't
That's
it?
right,
It was brilliant.
Well, I've also sailed into Newport, Rhode Island, which is where famously they had once hosted the America's Cup.
Well,
and that's the way to go into Newport, is to come in on a yacht.
Indeed.
It's wonderful.
But anyway, so this is what they say. But get this, you see, because I research these things thoroughly. A little paragraph buried deep in this report, okay? Modest alcohol intake is thought to cut the chance of having heart disease. For drinkers, risks and benefits of alcohol have to be considered individually, including the risk to skin cancer.
Right.
So they tell you all about the possibilities you get skin cancer if you drink white wine, which I've never heard before. You don't go... I mean, look, when you get a bottle of wine, you put it down your throat. You don't pour it all over yourself so that you impregnate your skin.
Right.
Right? But then to say that, actually, having a modest amount of alcohol can actually help your heart.
Right.
They don't...
Isn't the answer just to be
Isn't
the answer just to be relatively sensible about what you do?
Of course it is. But they, the kind of the drink Taliban police just say you shouldn't. It's naughty, it's bad, it's wrong. You're a terrible person. I hate all that.
I don't think you take it personally.
Well, I don't take it personally, but you've got amongst our millions of listeners, there are a very high percentage who enjoy moderation in their intake of the grog.
I see. The Porkmeister says James is on fire today, talking to Doc Richard Wellings, making up for yesterday's monochrome chess champion madness.
I don't think so. By the way, you see the Norwegian guy won it?
He did. The guy that you said was the underdog.
Well, I didn't say
even though he was the world champion.
No, I didn't say he was the underdog. I said that he had a battle on his hands when he came through, and he's now still the world champion.
He is. He won the World Chess Championship, in fact, for the third time.
Yes, that's right. Now, it says here, and I'm very grateful to Charlton Kev, so I presume that he's, unfortunately, a Charlton fan, because that club's in crisis, isn't it?
They're having a few problems, aren't they?
They are. He says, you think the M3 is bad at the moment, Porky? Just wait until they start digging up the M4 up to Junction 5.
Right.
No, sorry.
What, from Junction 1 to Junction 5?
No, Junction 5 to Junction 12.
Right.
My God.
Goodness me. That's from sort of just past Heathrow, isn't it?
That's right, just past Heathrow. Yeah,
all the way down to Wiltshire, basically.
That's right, just the other side of the M12. Wiltshire and Marlborough is Junction 16. I happen to know that.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, okay. So, but it is certainly on the way. Past Reading, I think.
It is certainly past Reading.
Yeah.
It'll be sort of towards Newbury, in fact.
It will be,
I would have thought.
Yeah,
but we don't have to give everybody a blow-by-blow description of the M4.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's the other problem in this country. The roads are not really, fit for purpose because they've been there for such a long time.
Yeah.
And there's too many cars using them.
It's just not on, is it? Now then, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about.
What do you want to talk to me about?
We're going to be talking about the Sprouts a bit later, right? But if you were the richest person in the world...
Yeah.
You would do something different to everybody else, wouldn't you?
Well, I probably wouldn't be sitting here with you, that's for sure.
Well, actually, you might, because it wouldn't matter how much money you had. You have to, at some stage, make your life worthwhile. Have a purpose for getting up in the morning.
You do? But I'm unlike you, though. I don't absolutely need to work in order to give myself purpose. I mean, if I decided not to work, I would have a purpose to do something else.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll discuss it another day. Now then, Bill Gates and his wife Melinda are the richest couple in the world.
Yes.
Now, what happens is, when they go on holiday, they go on long trips, right? What they do is they commission a matching set of jigsaws.
Set of jigsaws.
Jigsaw puzzles.
Right. So they both have the same jigsaw.
Yes, this is absolutely right. They're matching pair of jigsaw puzzles, identical. They are hand-carved. They're beautifully hand-carved on expensive wood and all this kind of stuff.
Expensive wood? What sort of other wood is there?
Well, you're going to, like, balsa wood's cheap wood, isn't it? This is very expensive, like teak or oak or something like that.
Well,
right?
for £12,000, I suppose, that's a lot of money.
Exactly. They cost £12,000 each, and they are then hand-painted and all this kind of stuff. And what they do is, I mean, this is terrific, really, when you know how the other half lives. When they go on holiday, they sit opposite each other, right, and they empty their box of jigsaws, like the jigsaw pieces, onto a table.
The jigsaw puzzle.
Yes. And then they have a race against each other as to who can finish first.
Right. On the same table or on different tables?
Well, they're facing each other on a big table.
Okay.
And they tip it all onto the table, and then somebody says go, and then they have to put the jigsaw together, and they have I think that's brilliant, don't you?
Do you do jigsaws?
Not for years.
Did you ever do jigsaws?
Yeah, as a kid I did, I suppose.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, my kids occasionally get a jigsaw.
Right.
But it never really goes for very long because nobody's got the patience to do them. I mean, when they had a 1,000-piece jigsaw a couple of Christmases ago, somebody gave one of my kids a 1,000-piece jigsaw. And all I could really do is the outside.
Well, that's what you do, isn't it? The outside first, yeah. Well, the ones I could never stand were the thin cardboard ones, because once you started putting it together, it all started turning up on you and all that kind of stuff, Well,
that's why you have to do it on a hard surface. You can't do it on a carpet.
No, of course you can't do it on a carpet. Even on a hard surface, the cardboard's so cheap, it sort of turns up.
Right.
But I haven't finished yet, because what I wanted to say to you was this. They do this. They compete against each other for who can do the jigsaw puzzle first to the soundtrack of The Sound of Music.
The Sound of Music?
Yes.
What, the whole album?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
So they expect to finish it before the Sound of Music soundtrack finishes, presumably?
I presume so, yeah. I mean, I don't know, The Sound of Music...
Well, it's like you say. I mean, if you are the world's richest couple, you can do whatever you want, really.
Of course you can.
If you want to spend, 45 minutes or 45 days doing a jigsaw, you can.
But I think that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, if money was no object... Go on, have a think about this before the end of the show. What is the one thing that you would indulge yourself in? Maybe on a, and this is a family show, by the way.
So I don't think I can tell you.
On a twice weekly... I mean, for instance, would you...
the time, by
because
the way.
you like...
I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd buy you a massive clock and stick it right in front of you and say, look at the time.
Because you like your food, you might say, I'd have the oysters flown in from Key Biscayne.
No, I wouldn't.
Biscayne.
From where?
Key Biscayne.
Key Biscayne.
Or something like that.
They don't have oysters there. It's too warm.
Well, they might have.
No, it's too hot.
No. You get oysters in warm seas.
No, you don't.
You do?
No, they're from cold seas.
No.
I promise you.
No.
You don't know anything about oysters. You've never eaten one, have you?
No.
This is Talk Sport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. Coming up a little bit later on, as you heard Tim Vine saying, it is going to be the Porky post bag, or postman pork, as some of us have called it.
Yep.
So if you haven't had a letter read out yet by Mr. Parry, you'll have to send him one. Just address it to the two mics, or to Mike Parry here at TalkSport. You'll find the address. It's 18 Hatfield. We'll give you the rest of it later on.
Yes.
Brunton said, Porky, a world authority on oysters, but you have never eaten one, have you? No.
Oh.
Priceless.
Okay, what about the other one, which says, Porky, I've had Gulf of Mexico oysters when I was in Georgia. Georgia, of course, one of the southern states of the United States of America, and not very far away from Florida and Key Biscayne. And he says, Porky, you are right. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, if you eat oysters from the Gulf of Mexico, you're a complete Philistine. I wouldn't recommend it. You want to eat them from somewhere like Donegal, as James has posted, saying definitely not from warm water. The best oysters come
Dublin
from cold
Bay.
water. Best oysters come from cold water, simple as that. Now, talking about cold water, it's been pretty cold down on the South Coast lately. We're going to talk to Alex Crook now, who is our South Coast reporter, because very strange game last night between Arsenal and Southampton. And afterwards, Arsene Wenger didn't seem all that bothered
he seemed quite pleased
that Arsenal were out of the competition. Let's find out if Alex found the same situation. Alex, very good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, guys, and I can confirm it is absolutely freezing down the south coast.
I bet it is.
Absolutely is, yeah. And what about Arsene's sort of attitude last night? Because I'm sure that as I watched him walking off at the end of the game, he had a little sort of smile dancing across his lips. He didn't seem at all perturbed that none of his players had turned up and that he was out of the game.
No, I think when the team sheets were handed in about an hour before kickoff, those in the away end, as the news of the Arsenal lineup filtered through, really did fancy their chances. And you have to say Wenger's selection smacked of someone who wasn't particularly fussed if they continued their journey in the EFL Cup or not. Southampton did ring the changes, let's not forget that, but it was a much stronger Southampton lineup than probably the home side, and it was a routine win in the end. They were 2-0 up early on and comfortable, really, until a late flurry from Arsenal in the last 5 or 10 minutes, but of course by that stage it was too late.
Right.
Yeah, are we kind of saying here then that, are we kind of saying, Alex, that, you know, Arsene Wenger plotted to exit the EFL?
I think that may be a bit too strong. No manager wants to lose games. They were 19 unbeaten going into last night, I'm sure. Mr. Wenger would have wanted to extend that run, but he kind of felt the side that he sent out would be enough to beat a Southampton side who, let's face it, they picked up a couple of good results themselves of late. 0-0 at home to Liverpool. Yeah. And then, of course, Mike, I don't want to remind you, but they beat your boys at the weekend as well. So
thanks very much. Yeah, thanks, Alex. That's good of you.
Yeah, the Porky, of course, was at that game because whenever he does go to an Everton game, they never actually are victorious, but that's another story. But, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's this, as you say, you can't say categorically that he wanted to get out of the competition, but it's almost like a sort of a subtle dance that they have to do, managers, isn't it? Because they don't want anyone to think that they're happy to be out of the competition, but he obviously is. I mean, Southampton, for example, might have been happy to be out of the competition given what else is going on with the Premier League and the Europa League and everything else.
Yeah, I don't think Arsene Wenger would have been crying into his cocoa last night, let's put it that way. Obviously, the Premier League and the Champions League is his priority. I mean, if you look at the difference in the Arsenal side to the one that Jose Mourinho, for example, who probably isn't going to win the Premier League this year, sent out in their cup game, there's no comparison. United need to win a trophy. This could be their best chance. Arsenal will feel they have bigger fish to fry. In terms of Southampton, I think you have to give Claude Puel credit. They played so many games of late. They've been away from home to Prague in the Europa League. That was a disappointing performance, but they've bounced back since then. The win against Everton, as I mentioned, and going through last night. It's their first semi-final in this competition in 30 years. They haven't won a trophy worthy of the name for 40 years.
That's right.
If Claude Puel could end that run in his first season in charge, given again they lost key personnel in the summer, as they do every year, that would be a fabulous achievement. And the way that he's managed his squad, because he's been rotating his pack much like Wenger did, but he's still got them to a position where they can qualify in Europe. They're holding their own in the Premier League, and now they have a semi-final to look forward to in this competition.
And I think, actually, you said 30 years since they reached the semi-final. That was also against Liverpool, wasn't it? I think,
it was indeed.
Yeah, I think they lost 3-0 at Anfield. Believe it or not, I don't know why, but I recall that. But I think that's going to be a terrific tie, you know, because both these managers want to win this competition. Without a shadow of a doubt, Jurgen Klopp wants to, you know, pick up his first trophy as
he wants
to
stamp his identity on English football, doesn't he?
Of course he does, and history's on his side, because I think the first trophy Mourinho picked up in this country was the League Cup, wasn't it?
It was. They beat Arsenal when again Arsene Wenger sent out a pretty weak side, given it was a cup final. I think Southampton would obviously prefer the second leg to be at St Mary's. They need to go to Anfield with an advantage. They drew 0-0 with Liverpool in the league a few weeks ago. I was there for Match Day Live. They were a bit fortunate, to be honest. Liverpool missed a lot of chances.
They were, but they kind of put a slight dent in Liverpool's, juggernaut of victories, didn't they?
They did, and it was a stubborn defensive display. Let's be honest, the draw that everybody wanted was Hull. No disrespect to Hull.
Yeah.
He says, clearly disrespecting Hull.
Exactly, yes. It's always nice to say it that way, though.
Yeah.
It's a tough tie over two legs. They got a hammering by Liverpool in this competition last season. They lost 6-1 at St Mary's, so obviously they can't afford a repeat of that. As I say, I think they have to go to Anfield with at least a 1, if not 2 goal advantage. But it's going to be 2 great games under the lights, and it's an achievement for Southampton, given their balancing act, just to be in the semi-final. But I think there's a lot of messages on Twitter from supporters of other clubs saying, well, it's a Man United-Liverpool final, it's a conspiracy by the Football League to keep those 2 big clubs apart. And Southampton love proving people wrong. They've got this "We March On" motto. They like sticking 2 fingers up to their critics. So if they could ruin that dream final, then they will do their best to do so.
They would. What's the fans' attitude to the Europa League campaign and how that's going, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing? Because we always hear that fans love cup competitions and they'll love Southampton getting to the semi-final of this one. But what about the Europa League?
They're loving it. I have to say, when you get drawn against Inter Milan, one of the powerhouses of European football, that really does add extra credence to your campaign, albeit Inter aren't the side they were. In fact, they're already out. Finished bottom of that group, which is a surprise to many. They've had a good trip to Prague. Actually, in the 3 away games they've had, they've seen their team pick up 1 point. That was away in Israel. Not too many Saints fans made that trip. And they haven't scored a goal yet away from home. Their best performances have been at St Mary's, but they're enjoying it. And I think they want that run to continue. It was part of the remit laid down to Claude Puel when he replaced Ronald Koeman in the summer. We want to reach the knockout stages of the Europa League. They're in a great position to do that. A win or a goalless draw at home to Hapoel Beersheva next week will put them through. And then, of course, who knows who they could draw in the next round. So I think, again, given that the departures over the summer and given that Claude Puel was an unknown quantity, I think the Southampton fans have been pleasantly surprised by the season they've had so far.
Well, they get easily excited, Southampton fans, because was it the young lad Sims who scored against Everton on Saturday?
Well, he didn't score. He set up the goal, didn't he?
Set up a goal, that's right. I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, you were there, weren't you?
Well, hang on. Everybody said he was man of the match and all this kind of stuff, But I mean, he didn't even start last night, did he? They're getting overexcited about a young man who's come through, and you know what happens? They build up expectation, and they say he's going to be the next, Michael Owen.
Why have you started talking like that?
Well, because,
they've already got a new Michael Owen up at Liverpool.
You've got to get these things into perspective. That's all I'm saying, Alex. You can't get carried away with these things.
No, I don't think anybody, within the corridors of power is. He was left on the bench last night, came on in the second half. I think they'll manage Josh Sims as they become masters of managing young players. Look how well Sam McQueen has done this season. Again, from nowhere, really. And Puel deserves credit for that because Ronald Koeman was quite scathing of his remarks about the youth team last year. He said that the under-23s, under-21s weren't good enough. Well, I think Josh Sims proved him wrong at the weekend. I mean, they've got this wonderful conveyor belt going right back to the days of Matt Letizia, actually. People think the Southampton Academy is a relatively new phenomenon, but they've been producing their own players for the best part of 40 years.
Yes, I think everybody's starting to admire them for it as well. Alex, listen, thank you very much indeed. Southampton, of course, taking on Liverpool in the semi-final of the EPL Cup, and Everton are not in that. Ronald Koeman, actually, has come out with some things lately which have started to have people question quite how good a manager he is.
No, it's only you questioning it.
No, it's not me questioning it.
He's been in the job.
He's had some
3.5 months.
Yeah, but he's got worse since he started, hasn't he? You'd have to admit that.
No, I won't admit that.
You won't admit that.
No,
what I'll say. You won't admit that Everton have hit a bit of a sort of a dull phase.
Yes, they've been disappointing results after the first 5 games.
So they've got worse.
After the first 6 games, they had 15 out of 18, and we've had a poor return since then. But they've
got worse then.
No, they haven't got worse. What they've done is the settling process, just like when you build a house, it has to have settlement and settle on its foundations. Right. That's exactly what's happening at Goodison.
Is that what's happening? Yeah. So when will it improve then?
Well, as soon as Mr. Koeman is able to, make all the moves he wants to make to repair whatever the damage is.
You've got into that FA mode again.
No.
This is Talk Sport. David says this at the 2 mics. You're right about Everton, MG. Ronald Koeman's team are looking very old suddenly, and then he accuses you of talking absolute rubbish.
I don't deny the fact that the Everton squad needs an injection of youth. I don't deny that at all, and I think that's one of the issues that Mr. Koeman, realised when he first got here.
You must, in your heart of hearts, though, be slightly concerned. I mean, even though you might never want to admit it, because you were when you were looking at Roberto Martinez and his kind of fall from grace, but you didn't really say anything until the end because you felt you should be loyal to him and to the team and to the owners and all the rest of it. But you must be slightly concerned that Koeman came in with a great deal of fanfare. The first thing I thought that he did very strangely was to start writing a football column for a newspaper before he'd even taken over the job. The second weird thing he did was to then sort of, talk about Lukaku perhaps wanting to go off and join another club where he might get, better as a footballer and he might be able to fulfil his potential. Then he said that he thought Liverpool would win the title. Now he puts out a picture of a Christmas tree that's all red, and his results are not really working for him.
Well, I'm not concerned. I mean, I'm disappointed that Everton aren't doing better, but I'm not concerned. Concern would be, we're going to slip into the relegation zone and be in a relegation fight. That's never going to happen because Everton are now structured
I don't think that's ever going
brilliantly
to happen.
To be able to face the future. But the future doesn't happen immediately. The future happens in the future. The future happens in months.
The future happens in the future.
Yeah, that's right.
Never a truer word spoken.
In months or even years' times, and you have to accept that because it can't change overnight. There's no such thing as instant success in football. Even when a club has free money like Manchester City and Chelsea, you can go out and buy as many...
Well, everybody's got free money now, though.
No,
you've got free money from Sky because they've got such big amounts of money coming in from the football, right?
Yeah.
And also, Everton have now got their very own billionaire investor, which is what you said you always wanted.
Yeah, but if you're only a $1 billionaire, believe me, you're not really able to, dish out free money to your club, as I would call it. If you're a multi-billionaire, like the people who own Chelsea, like the people who own Manchester City, then you can do it. But you can't honestly...
Are you saying that Mr. Mashiri is nowhere near the same sort of level as the people that own City and Chelsea?
Well, I think everybody knows that. Everybody knows that actually, he's a very successful man. To become a billionaire in the world makes you, in an exclusive club of about, I don't know, less than 1,000 people, and there's how many billions of people in the world. But nevertheless, if you want to fund a football club and use limitless resources, you've got to be a multi-billionaire. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Well, but I mean, for Everton to reach the next level, which is what they say they want to reach, i.e., contending for the top four for the Champions League and all that, something's going to have to change, isn't it?
Not necessarily.
And if Ronald Koeman is not the right manager, they'll have to go and get somebody better.
Well, not necessarily, because, to be perfectly honest, Leicester have proven that if you get the equation right, then you don't need free money and limitless amounts of money and very, very deep pockets to achieve something. And that has alerted the whole of the football world to the fact that if you get the combination right between a great manager stroke coach, between committed players and between an attitude, you can do it.
Which would suggest that at the moment Everton hasn't got that mix right then.
Well, maybe not, but I'm absolutely certain that we've got the right man in charge, Mr. Koeman.
Well, you said that when Martinez was in charge.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did. But you never spoke ill of Martinez until he left.
Yeah, with Mr. Koeman, I'm sure it will come there. Now, listen, I want to say something to you.
You don't want to talk about Everton anymore, do you?
No, I'm happy to talk about it. We're talking around in circles. We went through all this before.
I'm just asking your opinion.
I've given it you. It's no problem.
Okay.
Now, listen, what I was going to say to you was, I went to Southampton, obviously, last weekend.
I do know that, yes.
And as we got in the car at the station, Southampton Central, then for about the next...
What, you mean on the way or on the way back?
This was after arriving at Southampton and going towards the football ground, okay? For about the first 5 minutes of driving away from the station up towards Southampton's ground, St Mary's...
Yes.
All these fantastic buildings on either side. I mean, beautifully architectured and all that. And
New buildings?
New buildings.
Right.
There's a gym here, and there seems to be a lot of people, congregating over here.
Right.
And when I said to the taxi driver, I said, blimey, seems to be quite a lot of development in this part of Southampton. He said, it's all the university. And I said, what do you mean? He said, this is all new student accommodation for the ever-expanding university.
Right.
And I said, it's
always been known as quite a good university, Southampton, isn't it?
Except for the fact that they've got a second one now. They've now got a second one. It used to be a technical college, and it's now called something like Solent University.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
No,
well, a bit like the University of the Trent.
That's right.
Similar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I said, so how active now is like education? He said, he said, we, as taxi drivers, we couldn't do without it now. Without the influx of students in Southampton, he said the economy would be on its
they're massive. They're massive cash cows now, universities, because they get an awful lot of foreign students apart from anything else.
Huge.
I told you when I went to my daughter's graduation, the master's degree class at University College London.
Yeah.
Almost everyone who was walking up to collect a Masters was from another country.
Unbelievable. Now, you're absolutely right there. So anyway, I said, I didn't know. Anyway, so go to Bournemouth. Yeah. That's where my sister comes from. And we've been there. And you know...
well, you go there very regularly.
I go there as often as I can. Once again, if you drive through Bournemouth, you see these incredible new buildings with, beautifully architectured steeples on them and all this kind of stuff. And they're all student accommodation.
Right. Don't you have a piece of that?
I don't. No.
I thought you did. I thought you said that your portfolio included some student accommodation.
Yes, but it's not the stuff that's provided by the local authorities, which all this is. Yes. It's private landlord stuff and all that. But anyway, what I was going to say to you is...
Yours is sort of 7 to a room type stuff.
So you've got like 2 cities there on the south coast, right, which are booming with students. And then I read this. The University of Bristol...
Who are you?
Yeah, who are you? Is to spend £300 million building a second campus aimed at what you've just said, the 2 degrees generation of young people for whom a bachelor's degree is not enough.
Right.
It wants to tap into a growing demand for master's degrees from candidates from all over the world who want to stand out in the labour market as more of their contemporaries go to university.
Yeah.
So what they're actually saying is... just having a degree these days is no good. It's no good. You've got to go for a master's, and Bristol have said we're going to get into that market. And they've listed some figures here. For instance, Cambridge is spending £1 billion on a research campus and accommodation northwest of the city to tap into this market.
Yeah, well, it's a massive part of the economy.
That is incredible, but most of it's going to be wasted.
Why?
People don't need that amount of qualifications to get on in life.
No, but think of the amount of money that those people bring into the city. Think of the amount of money that money then generates for the rest of the economy. And you, as a supposed Keynesian economist, should think that's a good thing.
But a lot of it's public money. That's the point. A lot of it is public money.
Doesn't matter. They're generating money for the economy.
They're called the Russell Group of Universities. Cardiff and Cambridge have taken advantage of the removal of a cap on student numbers and low borrowing costs to develop new campuses to attract thousands more students, and most of them are there to go for a master's degree, a second degree. What a load of old bolloxios,
Well,
honestly.
Just because you haven't got one doesn't mean that you should be in any way sort of jealous. Anyway, you've been talking for far too long on this subject because we're running late now. You're going to get yourself into trouble with the producers. This is Talk Sport. Floyd has tweeted us at the 2 mics. He says the best oysters in the world come from Whitstable in Kent, and that isn't overly warm. It's certainly not overly warm at the moment, Whitstable. They have a festival down there, actually, the Oyster Festival, every single year, which is magnificent.
And do you know what? Where we are now, there is a licensed premise around the corner from the TalkSport Towers, which sells Whitstable Bay Pale Ale.
Is there?
Yeah, there's a brewery there, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you may be right about that, but Whitstable is famous for its oysters.
Yeah,
more than it is for its beer.
but I mean, it's it's got a heritage for the good things in life, like oysters and beer. I always confuse Whitstable in Kent with that great port in Yorkshire.
Are you thinking of Whitby?
Whitby, that's it, Whitby.
Where Dracula comes from.
No, I mean...
Dracula comes from Whitby.
No, I know what you mean. What was the name of the author?
Bram Stoker.
Bram Stoker. He stayed in Whitby
I'll just fill
once.
in the blanks, shall I?
No, he stayed in Whitby once. But Whitby, actually, was always the centre of intrigue and dark plots in Heartbeat.
Heartbeat?
Yeah.
So you've gone from Bram Stoker and one of the classic Gothic novels of all time.
That's right.
To Heartbeat.
Definitely. They had
Unbelievable.
They had a plot there once where some Russian, I
don't care what plot they had in Heartbeat.
No.
They never had a plot worth watching in Heartbeat.
Yeah, they did. Some Russian fishing boat captain was trying to defect, and he tried to sort of come ashore at Whitby, and it was in the days of the Cold War.
Sounds fascinating.
So we had to be sort of politically correct. But I forgot to say...
How did it end?
Well, it ended
You don't know, do you?
No.
You've never seen the end of anything. You've never seen the end of anything.
Heartbeat always ended well. Well, except for the time when the curly-haired cop got shot. That didn't end well.
We're going to talk to a moth enthusiast now.
Excellent.
I'm so happy that I've been able to describe him as that, because I don't think we've ever had a moth enthusiast on the show before. But Martin Wainwright, who's up in Oxford, is going to tell us about why moths are affecting the supply of sprouts.
I know, it's amazing,
right?
isn't it?
Martin, a very good afternoon to you.
Hi, very nice to be with you.
Yeah, sorry to keep you waiting, talking nonsense about an old television show, which is somewhere in the darkest depths of Porky's brain.
Well, I used to live in Leeds, actually, and I was just, while you were talking, I was Googling moths and Whitby.
Really?
Excellent.
And all I've discovered so far is that 3 unusual moths appeared in Whitby in 2006.
Excellent.
Right?
They're still there.
Now, what would be your description of an unusual moth?
Well, the one that's in the news at the moment fits the bill really, because unusual moths in the UK are ones that have been blown here from abroad. They nearly always come on the wind because they're far too small to do kind of long-distance journeys. But they, under their own power. But they do.
And while they're being blown by the wind, do they kind of put their wings in suspension? Do they just get blown and they just kind of put their wings out?
I think they're a bit like clothing in a washing machine. I think they kind of just tumble over.
I see.
They don't glide. They don't sort of put their wings out. No, I think they just go.
Yeah, they're like spores, aren't they, from a plant that's just exploded them out, and they just sort of flutter in the wind.
I didn't realise you knew so much about moths.
I do. Are we talking here, Martin, about the diamond backer?
Yes, the diamond back moth. That's right.
That's it. Yeah.
Which is a very, very notorious pest.
It is. It is.
Yeah, but one thing to say about it immediately now is they will all now be dead.
Yeah.
Whatever damage they've done, they will have done, because the kind of weather we've got at the moment, they can't survive. Because
where have these diamond-backed moths come from?
Well, that's very relevant to that point, because they normally spend their time on the coast of the Mediterranean.
Yes.
And so what we've got at the moment, would have been, has been lethal for them. You can imagine somebody coming from being stretched out on the beach on their towel and suddenly appearing in southern England during the current frost. And I mean,
I came back from Sicily quite recently. It was very warm there, and I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm not showing any signs of illness.
Now, Martin, I need to explain to our millions of listeners.
Excuse me, I was just asking Martin about something there.
Well, he answered your question.
Well, no, I'm saying I'm okay. I was in a hot climate, came to a cold climate.
Comparison with spores impressed me very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
He's reading it from one of his moth journals.
No, I'm not. Not at all. Now, Martin, just to explain to our millions of listeners, what happens is they get blown over. They then land on sprouts and cabbage and all that kind of stuff, and then amazingly,
Why?
they do. I don't know. And Martin's going to tell us.
Okay.
But amazingly, what I didn't realise is that moths turn into caterpillars.
Yes, or the other way around.
Caterpillars turn into moths.
Yes.
In the same way as caterpillars turn into butterflies. I didn't realise. I thought they were two separate genera.
Well, they are. They're two separate things, but they have exactly the same life cycle. They start as eggs. They turn into caterpillars, like in, the very hungry caterpillar. Shows the process.
He doesn't have children. He has no idea what you're talking about.
No, I do.
Sorry.
Yes, go on.
Well, you do have children.
I've got grandchildren now, so I'm very, very familiar with the very hungry caterpillar. But they turn into caterpillars whose only aim in life is to eat, and which they do voraciously, and that's been the problem with the sprouts and the other vegetables. And then they turn into a thing called a chrysalis, which is like a little hard...
Or pupa.
Or poop? Good heavens!
I've just seen Silence of the Lambs. That's where that comes from.
Yeah.
Anyway, when they're in that stage, without getting too romantic, what takes place is truly extraordinary, because the caterpillar then turns, first of all, into a kind of mush, and from this mush, it turns into either a butterfly or a moth.
Yes.
And when it's ready, it hatches. It attempts to have sex as quickly as possible, and then it dies.
Yeah,
and that
sounds a bit like my partner in the radio studio here. Actually,
no, I don't. No, I don't have sex very quickly and don't then die.
Yeah,
I suspect you're closer to that than I am.
No, I don't think so, mate. Yeah, looking at your bodily shape. Please go on, Martin. Yes.
Well, sorry, stop me if I'm whistling on, but that is the nub of the problem, really, because they have a very, very short breeding cycle.
Yeah.
Where when they arrive, on these winds and they crash land in England, they immediately get down to it with another diamondback moth. They lay eggs within a couple of days. The caterpillars take about a week, maybe a fortnight.
Yeah.
Another week in a chrysalis, and then you've got another moth, and then it all starts again.
But why are they particularly doing whatever damage is being done to sprouts? I mean, what's their attraction to sprouts?
Well, they just, unlike a lot of human beings, they just love sprouts, and they love all vegetables known as brassicas, so that's cauliflower, cabbage, and all those things. And,
you knew that, did you?
I knew that, yeah. But what
What's the name again? What's the collective noun?
Brassica.
Brassica,
yeah. But what I find amazing, Martin, is they are blown from the Mediterranean at an enormous sort of speed, really, relative to their size, and they're only lucky if they land on brassica, aren't they? Some of them can land on anything, like, dandelions and anything else.
Yes, that's
they are the white.
That's an extremely interesting and good point, because one of these amazing things of the natural world is that the adult insects, i.e. the moths and the butterflies, cruise around, because they have, once they're here and the winds stop blowing, they can fly reasonable distances.
Sure.
And the bigger ones can fly quite long distances, and they will fly around until they find and nobody's quite sure how they do it, but they know where to lay their egg, because if moth laid its egg on a nettle, say, when it was meant to eat cabbage, well, that will be the end of the egg.
Yeah, but I'm told they're attracted by the odour, aren't they, of the brassica?
Well, so we think.
The odour of the brassica?
Yes.
You've gone mad.
No.
Do you know how much time we've wasted on this now?
No, we haven't.
So what exactly are they... Why are they causing sprouts to be in short supply?
Because they're eating them all, you idiots. Have you not been paying attention?
Well, do they like them boiled or what?
No, they like them raw.
Exactly.
And they've done that now. And actually, one quite interesting thing, just, because until I retired, I was a journalist, this story, the way it's appeared is interesting, because Farmers Weekly, which I imagine you keep an eye on.
Oh, yeah, he gets it every week, yeah.
Well, back in June, which is when these moths came, the ones that are responsible for all this, Farmers Weekly had an article saying, farmers, the diamondback moth is here in bigger numbers than since any year since 1996.
Yeah.
Get yourself ready. Take the precautions you need to do.
Yeah.
And it's the chap now who's. And
did they not do that then?
Well, he appears not to have done. And I'm not. I'm very sympathetic to him, but in a sense, it's a Christmas story, isn't it, for the Daily Telegraph, because sprouts are Christmassy.
Well, every year we hear that there's going to be a short supply of sprouts, and it all turns out to be nonsense.
Well, it
I
doesn't.
think that's right. It's to get us to buy sprouts.
Yeah, exactly.
But
even Martin sees that. Martin, listen, I'm terribly sorry. We've got to let you go.
Yeah.
Porky has monopolised the conversation.
Not at all.
The only thing that's got a shorter reproductive cycle than the moths is you, right?
Are you talking about the diamondback now, are you?
Yes, that's
Couldn't
right.
remember the name of it, could you?
Well, what, you want to ask me about what names you can remember and what names you can't remember? Should we do a little quiz on what names you know?
No.
I don't think you should.
No.
Let's just talk sport. Let's find out who's won those brilliant prizes, all thanks to Sky Sports. Earlier we asked you which pair of brothers were the first since Rory and Tony Underwood to play together for England, the Armitage brothers or the Vunipola brothers.
That's right. Now the answer, of course, is the Armitage brothers. Congratulations to Dan, the Swansea fan. You have won Sky Q with Sky Sports free for a year and a Samsung Galaxy tablet.
That's all thanks to Sky Sports. Don't miss the final weekend of the Autumn Internationals live only on Sky Sports. England face Australia at Twickenham from 1:30 on Saturday, with England looking to finish the series on a high. Get involved by using the hashtag #ForTheShirt. Coming up later on in this hour, we're going to talk to Tom Colomossi from The Standard about Harry Kane signing a new contract for Spurs. But we should also ask him about QPR's game tonight against Wolves as well.
Who are you?
Give him the job.
Yeah.
Ian Holloway, who was on, by the way, with Jim White a little bit earlier today on Talk Sport.
And they have, of course, given him the job.
They have indeed. Please do a Prove Porky Wrong segment on your show once a week, says Gordon. Hashtag fact check. He doesn't have to talk some rubbish.
Well, you see, I don't take offence to that sort of thing.
What did you think when you said, hang on, when you told the moth enthusiast there that you didn't think moths and butterflies had the same kind of, growth and metamorphosis scenario?
Yes.
What did you think moths went through then?
Well, I didn't know, because you see, if you
How did you not know?
Let me just explain this to you. When you look at a beautiful butterfly fluttering around, then that is a quite distinctively individual creature.
Yeah.
Moths, however, and my mum taught me this years ago, are just made up of dust. That's all they are. And
that's not true. What do you mean made up of dust?
They're made up of nothing but dust.
No, that's not true.
When you listen, you get rid of a moth. You know how to get rid of a moth?
Well, you can put a light on.
No.
It's attracted to a moth like a moth to a flame.
The way you can get rid of a moth is literally, if you had a pair of gloves on, if you just smashed the moth, right, all that'd be left is dust.
I thought you were an animal lover.
Well, I am, but moths aren't animals. But that's true. Moths are made of dust.
They're not made of dust.
Butterflies have
You can't have something just made of dust.
Moths are just made of dust,
ridiculous.
honestly. Butterflies have a sort of core-like body piece.
Well, so do moths.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't, Mike. Honestly, they don't.
You're convinced because your mother told you this when you were about, 7?
No.
That they're made of dust.
They are made of dust. Have you never rubbed out a moth?
I'll tell you what I've done.
Have you never
rubbed out a moth? It was like the mafia now.
Yeah, that's
You're
right.
going to rub out the moth.
Rub out the moth, yeah.
Push the envelope. The point is that I was once a member of the Hampstead Photographic Society, right?
Were you?
When I was quite a young man.
What did you take pictures of?
I took pictures of all sorts of things. I went down to Brick Lane Market. I took a picture of Tubby Isaac's jelly deal stand.
Yes.
I used to take pictures of the sunset, and I was once exhibited actually in the Swiss Cottage Public Library.
Oh, really?
In a
what do you
an
mean
exhibition.
you were exhibited? Like
my photographs were exhibited.
Oh, I thought you meant they put you on a stand and said, "Look at this freak."
No, that was what they did for you.
That's quite funny.
Yeah. No, you were in Ripley's Believe It or Not museum, weren't you? After you had the ball of fat removed from your stomach as a baby.
Oh, you say? I see. So you're mocking my.
Well, you're the one that accuses me of being a freak.
My medical
when in fact,
history.
It's very clear that there's only one of us in that particular
my
area.
Medical history, you know.
But no, one of the things that I did was that I went to a photographic sort of lecture about by this guy who was a specialist photographer who only took pictures of moths and butterflies.
Oh, really?
And a bit like watching an Attenborough documentary on Planet Earth, which is I'm surprised not ever making an appearance in Porky Vision. By the way, I don't know if you've watched it.
What?
Well, Planet Earth too. Have you not been watching it?
Yeah, I've watched a bit of it. Yeah.
Well, why isn't it in Porky Vision?
Well, I think it's a bit sort of predictable. I think it's predictable. Yeah,
What's predictable about it?
Well, I mean, I know most.
Well, maybe if you watched more of these programs about nature, you wouldn't actually think that moths were made of dust. Anyway, the pictures close up of a moth and a butterfly prove that they are very incredibly ugly creatures. Actually,
yeah, they are.
You think a butterfly? You just said it was beautiful.
Well, the wings of a butterfly are beautiful.
But if you look at its
core body,
and you look at its face, it really is pretty horrendous, right?
Yeah.
And moths and butterflies are very, very similar looking.
Yeah, are they? Yeah. Okay,
That's
good.
a bit gratuitous.
Yeah, no.
By the way, here's one from DJ Maz, who says, "Stupid Porky strikes again. Whitstable Bay beer is brewed in Faversham by Shepherd Neame."
Yes, that's
so
right.
It's got nothing to do with Whitstable.
Well, why is it called Whitstable then?
Well, why? I don't know. Why is Guinness called Guinness?
No, Guinness is called Guinness because the Guinness family own the production methods that
Do you know what
bring
I
you
discovered,
Guinness.
by the way?
What?
I was out of the weekend.
It makes you discovered anything.
Well, I mean, I don't know why you're being so vitriolic.
Yeah, go on.
Have you been overdoing a Red Bull or something before today's show?
Go on.
I was out at one of the nearby castles in Sussex last weekend.
Oh, a nearby castle.
Yeah, and it turns out that in the grounds around the castle, it was one of the first fields where they grew the hops for Guinness. And it all used to be owned by the Guinness family. And that's where it all started.
So why did it end up at Production Centre in Dublin?
I'm not sure of the answer.
Why is it worldwide famous as an Irish beer?
Well, I'm not entirely sure, but the hops certainly...
You need to find that out then, don't you?
The hops certainly came from Sussex. Paul says this, I can see a quiz on moths coming up, seeing as Porky knows so much about them.
No, we've decided on the quiz for this
Have
week.
we?
Yes.
We haven't talked about that yet.
Oh, I think we have.
No, we haven't.
I think it's been decided between myself and the producer.
Well, that's good. What were you going to tell me so I can pass it on to the independent quizmasters?
Well, they will talk to the independent quizmasters. Don't worry about it.
What, so you're not going to announce what the quiz is
Yes,
about?
I am. Yes.
Well, tell us then.
It's Heartbeat, the TV series, because we talked about it in the last part of the show.
You want to do it on Heartbeat?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that a good enough subject for a quiz?
Well, what do you think?
I have no idea. I've never watched the thing.
Well, in that case, you don't need to worry about it, do you? Because the independent quizmasters put all the questions.
Okay, I'm sure.
Send them all the questions for you.
Would you say you're an expert on Heartbeat?
I would say that I have a detailed knowledge of the programme.
Gabriel is not in favour of moths. He says, bring on the moths. Sprouts are food of the devil and must be destroyed. They only take up room that pigs in a blanket could take up.
No, I like sprouts, particularly at Christmas, particularly when they are... Don't you put butter on sprouts? I think you do. I think you put butter on sprouts.
Well, you can do any number of things.
Yeah. But I particularly like the...
My personal favourite is to saute them with pancetta.
Yeah, pancetta.
Do you know what that is?
It's cheese. No, isn't it?
No.
I thought it was.
No, it's ham. It's Italian ham.
Oh, okay.
Dave says this, here in Bath, your old university have brought the police station to convert to student accommodation, along with any other available land.
Yeah, you see, what I meant to
say, that's great, isn't it? So you don't need a police station, just put some more student accommodation up.
I totally agree. And what I meant to say earlier when I was talking about students is, I mean, most students... Now, how do I say this without sounding as though I'm trying to insult students?
You won't be trying to insult them.
If you want to, spend
years...
It's
starting to sound like Ian Holloway now.
No.
If you
want to spend years and years getting more and more degrees...
Well, that's not the case.
Academically, what a waste of time.
Well, it's not, actually.
I mean, aren't you rather an idle individual if you prefer to just sort of keep stacking up degrees and actually get out into the world and do a proper job?
Well, yeah, but some people do these degrees in order to get a proper job at the end of it. I mean, I completely take your point if the people are doing degree after degree after degree up until the age of about 40.
That's what I mean.
But nowadays, it's not unusual to take your further education and your higher education up to about 25.
There was a guy who worked for me at the Daily Express who already had a degree in, BSc or something.
A degree in BSc?
Yeah,
Do you mean he had a BSc?
Yeah, he had a BSc.
In what?
I don't know. I've no idea.
Well, why didn't you ask him?
Well, it was something useless, something like... science or something. So, like chemistry or something like that. So anyway, he then goes and gets an MA in something else. Sorry, why are you...
I'm laughing at some of these tweets that are coming in.
Why can't you pay attention?
I nearly crashed the car, says Sharky, with Porky's latest gem, Moths are made of dust, my mum told me. I mean, really? You've got Adrian Mole, aged 13 and 3/4.
No. What I... Can you just listen for a minute? And
because you're just going to talk some more nonsense, aren't you?
No. So this guy had a BSc, then he got an MA.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I get a request from him in writing saying, could he have 3 days off?
Right.
And I said, what for? He said, to take my PhD exam. I said, what are you doing that for?
Yeah.
He said, well, you know...
Are you sure he wasn't just giving you a load of old flannel? You don't take a PhD exam. A PhD is a thesis that you write over the course of a year.
Well, I think the conclusion to it was...
I think he just wanted a couple of days off.
No, I think the conclusion to it was you have to take some sort of exam. So I said, well, why are you taking this exam? What do you... Sorry, what's your problem?
I don't think you do take an exam for a PhD.
He said, I want to get my PhD. And I said, what does that make you? He said, a Doctor of Philosophy.
Yeah.
And I said, but you're the environment correspondent. I don't need a Doctor of Philosophy to do your job. What is your problem?
Yeah.
And he said, it was part of my long-term career plan,
Right. Which was what?
I don't know, because he's still at the Daily Express.
Is he?
That's about 20 years ago.
Well, I think, to be fair, you need a pretty good understanding of philosophy to work at the Daily Express these days.
Yeah, maybe you do.
Yeah. Jimmy says this, Porky seems to know lots about moths. Maybe you should do the quiz about them. Although he didn't know that caterpillars become moths.
No, well, I kind of did, but I wasn't sure it was the same.
Larry says if moths are made of dust, then Porky's made of gas. You're not going to need much support for this plan, this theory that moths are made of dust.
By the way, I'm getting a few negatives here saying, no, we can't have a quiz on Heartbeat. It's not interesting enough, so I'm afraid that one's out the window.
Well, it doesn't have to be. I mean, you make the decision as to what the quiz is going to be on. I've got no problem with it being about Heartbeat.
Yeah, well, think about this one. Yeah, okay.
Gabriel says moths are not made of dust. It's due to the scales on their wings that they give a dust-like appearance when they crumble.
Yeah, but when you
get rubbed out,
if you smash them with a velvet glove sort of thing, or a wool glove or something like that, they just turn to dust. That's all they are.
No, they're not.
I've done it. I've tried the experiment.
Oh,
it's
true. How many moths have you killed in your life?
Well, if I see a moth and it's bothering me, the moth gets it.
Luckily, up next, it's Postman Pork.
Hello, this is Tim Vine on Talk Sport. It's Mike Parry's post bag. I can't wait to see what's in there.
Postman Pork, I eat my chips with just a fork, 'cause then I can still talk.
Possibly the worst singing I've ever heard from you, which is saying something.
Well,
you completely move off the melody. It's a completely different song you're singing there.
You don't understand anything about it.
Right.
You know about
anyway,
singing,
very
nothing.
nice of Tim Vine to leave us a nice little message this morning after he was in on Talk Radio earlier.
Tim, I will say thank you very much indeed.
He himself can't wait to see what's in your Postman Pork bag. So let's have a couple of letters that have come in. These would be sent in, of course, to Mike Parry at Talksport, 18 Hatfields, London SE18DJ.
That's it.
And we're opening them just for the first time now.
We certainly are.
So there's obviously a risk. Because as we mentioned last week, there is that famous episode where somebody sent you something sort of nefarious in the post.
Well,
and you had to call in the sort of contamination squad, didn't you?
The bomb squad.
Yeah.
But that was years ago when there was a big scare about all that sort of thing. Now, the thing is, I've opened this one because it was clearly that this was a Christmas card, okay?
Okay.
So I've just opened it, and it's addressed to both of us. It says, God bless you at this joyful season. To Mike and Mike, you are great broadcasters. I listen to you always. And this is from Karen.
It's not from your mum, then?
No, you idiot. This is from Karen from Forfar Angus in Scotland.
That's great.
Angus.
One of the great places to have as a football result, isn't it?
Yeah.
Remember that Mickey Brennan in New York used to always imitate the Scottish accent.
Yeah.
East 54, Forfar 5.
That's right, yeah, absolutely.
You've never been to Forfar?
No.
Yeah.
Why would I have been to Forfar? Where is it?
It's in Scotland.
Yes, I knew it's in Scotland, but is it near Glasgow or Edinburgh or what?
It's sort of further north.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Now, is there a place called Forfar Angus?
Well, Angus is the county. That's
I see. Forfar in Angus in Scotland.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well,
it's up towards sort of Carnoustie that way.
Okay. So let me open the letter now. Let me see the one that.
Thank you, Karen, by the way.
Thank you, Karen. Right, I'll open this one, and this is from somebody in Coventry. Okay.
Yes.
So here we go.
You didn't read the front of it where it says special Christmas blessing.
I did.
May the peace and joy of Christmas be yours now and always.
Joy.
You didn't say that.
Right, now let's open this one.
Yeah.
Right, this is rather nice. It's a
What is it?
Well, actually, it's a drawing.
Is it?
And it says the two mics on one side, looking on the other, and there's two of us sitting here, upside of a table, and it says the two mics, and
When you say a drawing, what do you mean? You have to describe it.
Well, it looks as though it's drawn by felt tip pen, and it shows a table with a chair on either side. Excuse me.
You're right.
The caricature...
You're overcome with emotion.
No, the caricature that is you has a bubble coming out its mouth saying, have you seen the time?
Yes.
And the caricature, which is me, excuse me, says, that's a bit harsh, okay?
Yes, okay.
And it's from Lola.
L-O-L-A?
Yeah. Why? And it says, I'm sorry.
Lola, why?
No, this is from Lola,
right,
who is aged 8.
Oh,
so,
right.
Lola, thank you very much indeed,
very
my
nice.
dear, for sending us this.
Yeah.
And she says, why do you always wear trainers, Porky? And the answer...
It's a very good question.
Excuse me.
You're going to need some medical attention.
No. And the answer to that, Lola, is that I don't always wear trainers. When I'm wearing a suit, I wear very expensive leather shoes and all that. But I find that
very expensive leather shoes.
Because of my deportment and my posture, it's easier for me to wear... they're not trainers, actually, but they're casual shoes that help my my gait, so to speak. A gait is the way you walk.
Are you still wearing those insoles, by the way, today?
No, take them out. Because they were
outsoles.
So anyway, I'm going to show this to Mr. Graham. So perhaps you'd like to say thank you to Lola for that.
That is very nice,
isn't it?
Thank you, Lola.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's open another one. Here we go. Mr.
Exciting,
Mike...
isn't it? It's like Christmas.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Mr. Mike Parry, presenter. So here we go.
Well, allegedly.
Oh yeah, thank you very much indeed. yeah. So open this one.
Yeah.
Oh, now this is quite a long letter because it's got a few pages. Right.
A few pages?
It's from Peter O'Connor.
Okay. Are you sure you want to give his name out? You should give his first name.
Well, it says it in the front, Peter.
No, I know, but he might not want you to give his last name out.
He's from Belfast.
Is he?
Which is in County Antrim. Now, it starts by saying, Dear Mr. Parry, as an Evertonian since 1960-61 season when Everton finished 4th in the league, Everton FC, the original top 4 club.
Yeah.
I heard Neil Ashton brush Everton to one side as he up Chelsea. No.
You can't say that.
It's all right, Peter. Mr. Ashton was
when
merely...
you read it out for the first time,
yeah.
You're supposed to kind of self-edit.
Yeah, but I mean, what that means is as he was bigging up Chelsea.
Well, you should have said that.
Well, it isn't what it says in the letter. And, so Mr. Ashton was, in fact, just expressing...
Is he just written in to attack Neil Ashton?
I don't know. His own professional view.
Have you got no filtering process?
Hang on. And he says... let me see. He goes on about some chap who used to play for Everton. I don't recognise the name there. It says, Everton FC had the second biggest crowd in football history at Goodison Park in 1948, 78,299.
So what?
Well, this...
In 1948?
Look, Peter is...
What difference does that make?
Peter's a man of a certain age, and he's given me some detail and some fact on Everton. So let's get to the end of the letter.
Yeah, go on.
It says... now, it says here...
This is going to get any more impolite.
Hang on. He said, Alf Ramsey used to tell all England players that Emlyn Hughes was on the phone to him. I'm not sure why.
What's the point of this one?
I don't know.
Well, Emlyn Hughes was on the phone to him when?
I don't know. But anyway, and it goes on to make, a few more comments. Anyway, look, I want to say, Pete, that's very interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Pete, from Belfast. Yeah, that's a good one.
Right, now then, let's open this one here. This is from the two mics to find out
This is from the two mics?
No, this is
By the way,
two
would you believe, people are starting to correct me on the Forfar score, saying, actually, it should be East 5-5, Forfar 4.
Oh, I see,
I don't think that's any better.
I don't think it's any better.
Do you think it's any better?
Anyway, I don't think it's any better. Right, this is from David, who is from Crewe, which is one of my, sort of alma mater type towns.
What do you mean? You went to school there?
No, I didn't go to school there.
Well, then how's it your alma mater?
It's near Chester in Cheshire.
It's not that near Chester.
It's quite near. It's only 20 minutes on the train.
Well, lots of places are only 20 minutes on the train from Chester.
Anyway, here we go.
I mean, Luton's only 20 minutes on the train from here, but it's not particularly close.
Oh, Luton's a lot further than 20 minutes.
On the train?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Anyway, listen, this says here to Mr. Graham, Mr. Parry, would you please
It's not another attack on Neil Ashton, is it?
No, I don't think it's an attack on Neil Ashton, no. That was a bit unfortunate. Sorry
that was very unfortunate.
Yeah. So he says, would you please send a photo or... nice. Hang on. Would you? Sorry, the writing's a bit.
The lighting is about as bright as it could get.
No, the writing.
Oh, the writing. What's wrong with the writing?
It's a bit wiggly.
Wiggly.
Right. So he says, Would you please send a photo or something else, nice glossy one, if possible. If not, one printed off the internet will suffice.
Okay.
He says, I would like 2 separate ones and one of you both together as well.
Really?
Also, could you tell me the address of your sister station, Talk Radio, so I can write to their presenters? So what's the problem?
Well, who does he like over there?
Well, I don't know. But anyway, just...
James Whale, maybe?
David, just let you know it's exactly the same address. We're in the same complex, same media complex.
Same complex, that's right. Exactly right.
He says, I've been listening to you since you took over Mr. Mendoza's slot. He likes
that was a while ago.
That's Mike Mendoza.
Yeah,
he said,
that's right.
He said, I've got some photos of Mr. Mendoza.
Yeah, I bet you have.
I sent them in, but he never sent them back. Oh dear, never mind. So they've been lost then.
Yeah, well, maybe we can find them in the complex that we work at here at Talk Sport, hashtag Talk Radio. Thank you very much indeed. That was the Porky Postbag. Postman Pork will be back at the same time next week.
Absolutely.
This is Talk Sport.
Wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we wouldn't have to wait so long? And wouldn't it be nice to live together in the kind of world where we belong?
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mites. There will be a podcast coming out tomorrow. Of course, the Porky quiz is going to be upon us, but I'm sorry, I've got bad news for you, Mr. Parry.
Yeah, go on.
Because the independent quiz masters have come back to me and vetoed the idea of doing a quiz on Heartbeat.
Yeah.
Not least because the show hasn't been on television for 10 years.
That's right.
And nobody's very interested in it.
No, but I know lots about it, you see.
Well,
That's why.
Well, you
say that. Gerrymandered this again.
Nothing to do with me.
You knew that I was an expert on Heartbeat, so you've got rid of it. So...
No.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with me. What they propose instead
is
that we do a quiz on something a bit more newsy, which is the appointment of Gareth Southgate as England manager. Third England manager of the year.
I totally agree with that.
And so
I
the
totally
quiz
agree with that.
we think should be on Gareth Southgate.
That's something I proposed earlier in the day, but I didn't seem to get much support for it. But I'm totally with that.
So you're happy to do a quiz on
absolutely
on that? Okay,
absolutely. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever.
Okay. Now you might think it's a bit of an odd time of the year to play the Beach Boys because it makes you think of sun and sand and beaches and guys in swimming trunks and girls in bikinis. But there's a couple of books out right now about how. The Beach Boys' sort of legacy should be looked. There's 2 different sets of memoirs, right, that have come out.
I mean, it's amazing actually. There's 2 autobiographies. One was written by Mike Love, who was the legendary lead singer of the Beach Boys ever since they came about in the very early 1960s. In fact, it was late 1950s. Yeah. And a book by Brian Wilson, who was the genius, who was the creation of the Beach Boys. Who battled
all his demons. And I'm told that Brian Wilson's book is quite sort of modest, whereas Mike Love's is all rather sort of big-headed and braggadocious.
And also, because I've been lucky enough to have a look at both the books, also a little bit sort of, I could have done better if this had happened, if that had happened, and trying to offset some of the things that went wrong with the Beach Boys against what he thinks is his genius.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we talk to our good friend Mr. Nick Harcourt, who's from KCSN in Los Angeles, 88.5, rock historian, I think we can call him, quite correctly, as well as active music DJ. Nick, a very good afternoon to you.
Well, good afternoon, good morning from Los Angeles. How are you?
Thank you very much indeed.
I mean,
very well.
It comes as no surprise to me, to be honest, that Brian Wilson, because of his creative talent, comes across in a sort of slightly more, shall we say, presentable way than Mike Love, who clearly loves the limelight and wants to talk about things a bit like Porky, as if he invented them all.
Well, quite possibly so. The other thing we have to remember, the back of all of this as well, though, is that, Brian Wilson did a lot of damage to himself with the success and the use of drugs at the time, and I think he's a little slower than Mike, with all due respect. So the retelling of the stories are coming from a couple of different perspectives. Not only from the fact that, as you mentioned, Brian was the guy who really came up with the original sound, but also because he is somebody who is still recovering from a lot of abuse that he did to himself. And I actually had the good fortune to interview Brian Wilson probably about 10 years or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I can tell you from that conversation is that the man is still there inside, but he's very, very slow in the retelling. And I think that we see that.
Are you saying it sounds to me, Nick, that you're being quite sort of generous to him. Are you saying that he doesn't remember a lot of this stuff very well?
There you go.
Mm. But I mean, sorry, are you all saying, Nick, he appears to be like a sort of punch-drunk boxer these days?
No, not necessarily. I just think that it was a very interesting thing to talk to somebody who you're thinking as you're speaking to them is not really there.
Mm.
But what is happening is that because of whatever damage he did, the processing in his brain is so much slower.
Yeah.
He's actually there.
Mm.
But I think the way he sort of responds and reacts is definitely affected by that. So the quick flick through the book that I had was so I had a little bit of an idea of what I was going to be talking to you guys about.
Mm-hmm.
Really just sort of, to me, showed a guy who is very aware of his place and what he did.
Right.
And in the retelling of the stories, as you said, there's a little bit of modesty there. But I also don't think that he really cares that much.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? I think he's written a book because it was time to write a book. Now, on the other hand, you've got Mike Love, who really wasn't the guy behind the creation, but was, certainly very important from the point of view of the voice to a certain extent. And if you look back at the time when Brian pulled back from the band, it was really Mike and Carl Wilson who sort of stepped up and became the frontmen of the band. And I think Mike Love certainly feels like he's been overlooked in that capacity.
Is there any difference, or is it important that Mike Love came from quite a sort of well-off background? When we compared them in the past to the Beatles and how, Pet Sounds was a response to a Beatles album and they were constantly kind of trying to outdo each other with different techniques and all of that. But, the Beatles were kind of all pretty much relatively, I suppose you would say, lower middle class or working class kids, whereas Mike Love boasted about, and does boast in his book about, how well-off his parents were.
Yeah, and I think, if you're going to make that little comparison to the Beatles, and there was definitely comparisons at the time, even in the UK, a lot of people in the 65 or 66 would say, oh, well, yeah, they're the new Beatles. There's a big difference between growing up in Southern California and growing up in Liverpool as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there was. The thing is, Nick, there's always a conflict, isn't there, in a group of musicians like this? Because it's a bit like, really, when you see a singer like Frank Sinatra or something singing somebody else's song. Who's more important, the guy who wrote the song or the man who is actually delivering that song? And that conflict happens within a group, doesn't it? Because without Mike Love, Queen without Freddie Mercury, although Freddie Mercury obviously wrote a lot of the songs, and, the Rolling Stones without Mick Jagger wouldn't have been the phenomenon they were, would they?
You always have those issues in bands, I think, and everybody knows that there's usually something between the singer and the guitarist. The guitarist is usually the one who's sort of defining the sound to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And then the singer is one who's up front, who's getting all the attention. And these are conflicts that have been going on for many, many years in many, many bands as well. And I think that sometimes the singers, think that perhaps they should be getting more attention than they are for the creative side of things,
Yeah,
no. And the guy who's done all the guy who's done all the creative stuff, who's sitting on the side of the stage, in some ways a little bit jealous that the girls are all screaming for the guy at the front.
Sure. No, I totally agree.
Does that mean, Nick, because we've got to let you go shortly, if you are a fan of the band, you should basically read both books in order to get the real picture?
I think you probably should, and that's not unlike what's happening right now on the touring side as well. There's two different bands out there. There is a band called the Beach Boys out there, which is with the remaining members of the original Beach Boys, and then there's, with the exception of Al Jardine who's out on tour with Brian Wilson, and Brian Wilson tours as Brian Wilson, and many fans of the Beach Boys, whilst they would really love to see everybody on a stage together, are quite actually happy to get the opportunity to see the band, two different versions of the band. So if you are a fan, you're probably going to want to read Brian's book to get a sense of the musical genius and also what he went through with the crazy stuff that happened to him and the recovery that he's done. And obviously take a look at the more ego-driven book by Mike Love. You get a fuller picture, I guess. And there's also been a couple of biographies of Carl Wilson, and if you're a Beach Boys fan, you'll probably read them both.
Absolutely right, Nick. Thank you very much indeed. Nick Harcourt there, who's reporting into us from KCSN in Los Angeles. 2 Beach Boys books out. Very, very different experiences, it would seem.
Indeed.
Now, we've got much, much more to do, but not a lot of time to do it in. Tom Colomossi's coming up. He's going to tell us about Harry Kane's new contract. We might ask him about QPR's game tonight as well.
Indeed.
Who are you? This is Talk Sport. Coming up here on Talk Sport, Adrian Durham and Darren Goff will bring you Drive from 4 p.m. and over on Talk Radio, Sam Delaney will bring you all the latest news and current affairs.
Absolutely right, and we have a packed weekend of live football coming up. At 3 p.m. on Saturday, you can hear a live commentary of Crystal Palace versus Southampton on Talk Sport 2. Then at 5:30, Talk Sport will bring you live commentary of West Ham versus Arsenal, and we are the only UK broadcaster with live commentary of El Clasico as Barcelona take on Real Madrid in the Nou Camp. You can hear that live and exclusive from 3:15 Saturday afternoon on talksport.com.
Maybe you should go over for that instead of going to Goodison to watch Man United beating Everton.
That's on Sunday. And the El Clasico is.
Well,
Saturday.
then you could do both, couldn't you?
No, I don't think
El
I
Clasico
could.
will be in the evening.
No, I don't think I could.
Because you were telling me just the other day that you've never been to Barcelona, which I was staggered by.
No, I haven't been to Barcelona.
Absolutely staggered.
No. Well,
it's a 3:15 kickoff, I'm told.
Yeah, it is exactly. Yeah, so it wouldn't be much good going there on Saturday evening, would I? Huh?
Well, go there Saturday afternoon then.
No, I don't think I will.
Why not?
Well, because I've got other plans.
Have you? Well, you're actually working with me until 1. You seem to forget that.
Yes. No, I never forget that.
Yeah. Now, how about this from Luke? He said, the Porky postbag. I've never heard anything so shambolic on live radio in all my life.
What?
Can't wait for next week.
Are you mad?
Now, of course, we've got lots to talk about in terms of London football teams.
Yep.
Tom Colomossi from the Standard is here. He's going to tell us about Harry Kane signing his new contract at Spurs, whether that might encourage Hugo Lloris to do the same. Tom, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah,
now, was it any surprise that it took a little while for them to persuade Mr. Kane to sign on the dotted line, or was it any surprise that he hasn't delayed it even further into January?
Well, I think it's a bit of a surprise, given a few weeks ago the talks had been put on hold, and the suggestion was that Harry Kane or his advisors or people around him were wanting well in excess of £100,000 a week basic, and the parties were quite far apart. So I think it's a surprise in how quickly it's happened since then. We're only talking, I think, November the 14th, so not even 2 weeks ago, just a bit over 2 weeks ago. But it's not a surprise that it has happened, especially given what Kane said after that West Ham game, which really did serve to calm the waters when he said how happy he was at Spurs.
I think it was a good time for Harry Kane's people to move in on this, Tom, because the season hasn't started for Spurs as last season ended, has it? You know, they haven't suddenly become prime Premier League title contenders.
No, they haven't, and I don't think they will be while there are the constraints there, the financial constraints of building a new stadium. The whole project cost £750 million. You can't survive as a football club you can't carry on as a football club without something like that making an impact on your balance sheet. So I think last season was an anomaly in some ways that they got so close. Yes, they played terrifically well, but Chelsea weren't in the picture, Liverpool weren't in the picture, Man United weren't in the picture, City didn't play very well. How often are we going to have seasons where that happens?
Yeah.
So I think where Spurs are now, kind of hovering around 4th, 5th, is a more natural habitat.
Well, when you say more natural habitat, maybe, but nevertheless, we know that the expectations at Tottenham are huge, and they're going to be even bigger when they've got their new stadium completed. And they're cruising at the moment, and the fans are a little let down because apart from the last 3 games of last season, they thought they'd pick up where they finished, and they haven't. And from what you've just told us, they're not going to now.
Well, last season was the big chance, wasn't it? I think the way that they imploded really in the last 4 games probably left a scar that is still there to an extent today. But I think most right-thinking Tottenham fans realise that they can't compete with the very top clubs for the very reasons that I discussed. That you look at the Premier League table, and it's a pretty clear correlation most years of wage bill to position in the league.
Yes.
And Spurs outperform most years in that regard. Should they adjust the wage structure? Well, that's another question. But again, as I said, Mike, it's very difficult to do that.
But fans don't care about that.
Well, but also the other question is not just about the wage bill, but it's about the depth of the squad as well,
Exactly.
which I suppose is somewhat related. And Tottenham, as we saw last year, were kind of looked upon as not having the depth of squad. And similarly this year, having got out of the Champions League already, it seems like such a waste, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point about the squad. I think what they perhaps needed in the summer was a player or two to come in, to go straight into the first 11 and improve that and put everybody else on their toes. Apart from Wanyama, nobody's done that. And I think that can cause maybe a bit of complacency in other players in the squad who think that if I'm fit and I'm playing okay, I'm going to get into the side. I think to progress, you always need that one or two players who are going to make your 11 better. But again, I come back to the point I was making. Those players cost 40, 50 million pounds, and they want lots of money.
I mean, on this deal, obviously, we're told that Harry Kane's, nearly doubled his salary and all that kind of stuff. But you're going to wonder whether at the end of this season, or maybe, I don't know, in 12 months' time, it might be Harry Kane regretting this contract having been signed rather than Spurs.
Well, if they're halfway up the league, then yeah, he probably will. But I think this kind of deal can improve the morale everywhere else. Kane's the main man. He's the hometown boy scoring all these goals. You mentioned fans, Mike. It'll certainly make them happier. But I think it makes the squad happier too. And when players who might potentially come to the club are looking at it from outside, it's an important message that they've managed to keep someone like Harry Kane, who would be desired by any club in Europe, pretty much.
And the question now, of course, is whether Hugo Lloris will be encouraged by Harry Kane staying to sort of do the same, really, because he's been a vital part of Tottenham's defensive statistics this season so far. And without him, I'm sure they'd let a lot more goals in.
Yeah, I think Lloris is a slightly different question, though. I think Lloris will make his decision based on the results on the pitch and where he thinks the club are going. He's nearly 30 years old. He wants to play in the Champions League every year. He deserves to play in the Champions League every year. And he's slightly different from Kane in that, although he is very happy at the club, he's developed great affection for them. He came from outside. He grew up in the south of France. He's not from the London area. He doesn't have Spurs in the blood in the way that Kane did growing up. So I think they're slightly different animals in that respect. I think Lloris's decision will be based on a sober analysis of whether he thinks Spurs' ambitions can match his own. And that's something he'll come to over the next 12 months, 18 months, I imagine.
That's right. And also, Tom, a small point, but I'm sure Spurs fans think about it. They went to Wembley and the results weren't good, so that's a new ground. West Ham have suffered terrible travails in their movement to their new ground. I mean, I know that the new Spurs ground is tailor-made and tailor-designed for Spurs, but nevertheless, you're going to say to yourself, aren't you, at some stage, it was cosy at White Hart Lane in the old days. Not sure it's going to be that cosy in the future.
Yeah, it's a very fair point, and I think maybe more pressing point is the fact that 99% is certain they'll be playing their Premier League home games at Wembley next season.
Yep.
And I think that's why Mauricio Pochettino has made such a point of telling the squad we have to get used to Wembley, we have to adapt to it.
Yes.
And that's why he wants to play there in the Europa League if they qualify for it. He needs that to feel like home. He can't afford for it not to.
And just one final
Absolutely.
question, Tom. I mean, if they continue in the Europa League and they stay in the competition until the latter stages of it, that's going to harm their Premier League chances as well, isn't it?
Yes, it would, and it has in previous years. They'd have a decision to make. Do you go hell for leather in the Europa League, or do you effectively drop it and play your lesser players, your second-string players? Mauricio Pochettino doesn't like that concept, but the fact remains that every manager has an ideal 11. So I think that will be a conundrum for them, and not suggesting for a minute that they won't go out to try to win the game against CSKA Moscow, but if they don't win it, it could prove to be a blessing in disguise.
Sure.
Thanks very much indeed. Tom Colomossi there from the Evening Standard. Haven't got time to ask me about Ian Holloway's game tonight, QPR against Wolves.
Who are you?
Thank you very much indeed. How about this from Michael? Postman Pork, put something in his mouth, preferably a cork. This is Talk Sport.
That's very nice. Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the two Mikes. talking about the colour red, Porky, don't forget about your red bladderised face. I'd like to have an England team that excites the public. I mean, I would like to have a night of passion with Kelly Brook, OK?
What?
But, I mean, anybody can say that. Anybody can say what
Family show this.
Excuse me, anybody can...
I think there's more chance of England winning the World Cup.
Key Biscayne.
Key Biscayne.
Or something like that.
I don't have oysters there. It's too warm.
Well, we might have.
No, it's too hot.
No, you get oysters in warm seas.
No, you don't.
You do?
No, they're from cold seas. I promise you. You don't know anything about oysters.
Heartbeat always ended well. Well, except for the time when the curly-haired cop got shot. Postman Pork, I eat my chips with just a fork.